Chapter 2160. Brother Yi, we won't attack you anymore. We promise that we won't team up with Lu Qianzhong. Xiao Yang, the crown prince of the snow cloud country, was so scared that his face turned pale when he saw the thunderbolt key being pulled by Yi Fei. It was obvious that the key was about to break. Bai Lung and Qin Wuyang were also deathly pale. After all, the three princes' main goal in coming here was to fight for the lightning ancestors' treasures. If they lost the treasures, their losses would be too great. Moreover, they could tell that Yi Fei was a man of his words. This made this honest man anxious. The consequences were unimaginable. Lu Qianzhong, make a statement too. Xiao Yang and the other two princes tried their best to appease Yi Fei. At the same time, they winked at Lu Qianzhong, hinting to him that he should compromise when necessary. Compared to Yi Fei's life, Rizu's inheritance was more important. Lu Qianzhong's face turned even uglier. However, he also understood that if he continued to attack Yi Fei, Xiao Yang and the other two princes would immediately stand against him and attack him at the same time. Aunt, you win. Now, let's stop fighting and not target each other. Let's enter Rizu's tomb together and fight for Rizu's inheritance with our own abilities. What do you think? Lu Qianzhong was forced to compromise. This was the biggest concession he could make. Xiao Yang, Qin Wuyang, and Bai Lung nodded in agreement. Yi Fei also stopped breaking the lightning key. He said in a low voice, I don't care if I want Rizu's inheritance or not. It's fine if I don't break the key. Lu Qianzhong, I want the method to break the seal of the Lord God. His main goal in entering Rizu's tomb wasn't to snatch the treasure, but to save people. However, although he succeeded in saving people, he couldn't break the seal left behind by Lord God Bai Yun. Therefore, he could only seek help from Lu Qianzhong, the son of the Lord God. Lu Qianzhong sneered. She's your woman? No wonder you are so desperate. However, if you want me to remove their Divine Lord restriction, you must first activate the lightning key and open the entrance to Rizu's tomb. What if I open the tomb, but you don't remove the Divine Lord's seal? Yi Fei was no fool. How could he be fooled so easily? Lu Qianzhong didn't say anything. He just took out 4 black tokens and said coldly, This is not up to you. Do you think that just because you snatched her away, you've succeeded in saving her? You're underestimating the methods of a Divine Lord. I'm not afraid to tell you that these 4 tokens are the key to unlocking their Divine Lord seals. If you know what's good for you, then open the entrance to Rizu's tomb right now. If you don't, then I'll destroy it so that you can only watch your woman live with an iron mask forever. Lu Qianzhong's threat was extremely vicious. At least Yi Fei couldn't suppress his strong killing intent when he heard it. However, he didn't dare to take the risk. If what Lu Qianzhong said was true, the consequences would be too severe. Thinking of this, Yi Fei could only make a compromise. He nodded with difficulty and said, All right, then it's a deal. However, I want to check the authenticity of the token. Swoosh! A token was thrown over by Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei caught it and took a look. He could sense a blurry figure of a lady within the token. The figure was surrounded by Sir God runes. It seemed that as long as he removed the runes, he would be able to remove the Sir God restriction on the lady. The token is real. Now, you should open Rizu's tomb, right? Lu Qianzhong stared coldly at Yi Fei. He even acted as if he was going to crush one of the tokens. Yi Fei's expression was cold. He finally used his dark force and activated the thunderbolt key. The void suddenly shook violently. Behind Yi Fei, a huge black hole appeared silently. At the same time, a terrifying aura was emitted from the black hole. Rizu's tomb must be in there. If we rush in, we will be able to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Xiao Yang and the other two were trembling with excitement. Lu Qianzhong's gloomy face flashed with joy. However, when he saw Yi Fei blocking the entrance of the black hole, his eyes flashed fiercely. And get lost. Rizu's inheritance will not be obtained by a lowly commoner like you. Didn't you want to save someone? Go and save her now. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. When Rizu's tomb opened, Lu Qianzhong suddenly did something. He threw the 3 tokens in his hand in different directions. Yi Fei did not say anything. since he knew that these tokens were the key to removing the Divine Lord's seal. Even if he knew that it was a trap, he had to fall for it. After all, his original intention was to save someone. Swoosh! Without any hesitation, Yi Fei instantly charged towards the nearest command medallion. At the same time, he had Xiao Qiao keep an eye on where the other 2 command medallions were flying. He is indeed stupid. As long as he obtains Rizu's inheritance, he can get any woman he wants. He actually gave up the opportunity to obtain Rizu's inheritance for a woman. Lu Qianzhong shook his head. Although he also had a heart of beauty, he could resolutely give up on Rizu's inheritance. That was a meaningless feeling. Xiao Yang, Qin Wuyang, and Bai Lung were the same. They looked at Yi Fei's back view with a mocking expression. However, they did not take the opportunity to besiege Yi Fei. After all, compared to killing Yi Fei, obtaining Rizu's inheritance was more important. Hence, after Yi Fei rushed out, Xiao Yang and the other 2 immediately rushed into the black hole, with Lu Qianzhong as fast as they could. Yi Fei's expression instantly changed. However, when he saw the 2 badges flying at high speed, he clenched his teeth and his body moved like lightning. After grabbing one of the badges, he charged toward the other one. He repeated this 3 times before he finally managed to collect all 4 badges. After that, Yi Fei did not rush into the entrance of Rizu's tomb. After all, he had already wasted so much time. Even if he rushed in now, he would lose the initiative. So what if I am stupid? Compared to those so-called benefits, I would rather believe in the feelings in my heart. He took the 4 tokens and took advantage of the fact that there was no one around to quickly grab the 4 women hidden in the Beastmark space. However, Yi Fei did not grab people. Instead, he grabbed a pitch-black black pot. Yi Fei's expression immediately darkened. Only then did he realize that the dragon turtle had actually stuffed all the people into the black pot. Fortunately, these women were fine. He then untied the black cloth on the heads of the other 3 women and took out their corresponding tokens. He then used his divine sense to erase the control runes inside the tokens. Bam! As the runes were destroyed, the black metal masks on the 3 women's faces finally broke, revealing 3 pale and frightened faces. Seeing that the tokens were indeed effective, Yi Fei was also excited. He took out the last token and tried to undo the seal. However, his expression soon turned extremely ugly. The last token, which was also the most important one, was revealed. Chapter 2161. Lu Qianzhong actually played a trick. Yi Fei's eyes were suddenly filled with killing intent and anger. However, when he saw the figure standing there like a wooden puppet, Yi Fei's tone became gentler. Don't worry. No matter what method I use, I will definitely remove your Sir God seal. He looked very serious. Then, he felt a comforting and encouraging gaze. That gaze lifted his mood a little. After all, he already knew that Lu Qianzhong had thrown out these tokens as a trap. In order to save Lu Qianzhong, he had no choice but to fall into the trap. I won't let this matter go so easily. I must snatch the token from Lu Qianzhong that can remove the Sir God seal. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with a hint of determination. Once again, he put the familiar figure into the black pot and put it back into the beastmark space. As for the remaining 3 frightened women, Yi Fei didn't care about them. He just rushed into the entrance of the Lightning Ancestor's tomb. The remaining 3 ladies looked at each other and did not know what to do. In the end, they simply gritted their teeth and rushed into the void entrance. There was no lightning in Rizu's tomb. There was only a gray sky and a dry ground. On the ground, there were palaces that had turned into ruins. Before Yi Fei had entered, Lu Qianzhong and the rest had searched all these palaces. There was nothing left, and Yi Fei was even more depressed. He could only speed up and hope that he could catch up with Lu Qianzhong before he obtained Rizu's inheritance. This time, Yi Fei swore that he would definitely beat Lu Qianzhong to death. Roar! At this moment, there was a violent ghost howl from the last palace in the distance. It was Bai Lung's ghost infant that was howling as though it had encountered a great danger. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. However, he still rushed to the palace in the distance as fast as he could. After that, Yi Fei saw a scene that caused him to be incomparably shocked. What he saw from afar was not a palace, but a huge mausoleum. At that moment, Bai Lung's mournful ghost howl was emitted from within the mausoleum. Yi Fei jumped in fright. Needless to say, Lu Qianzhong and the others must have rushed into the mausoleum. Either there was a fight or they had encountered some danger. With the situation unclear, Yi Fei was very cautious. Of course, he would not step into it easily. Xiao Qiao, use your senses and see if there's anything special around us. Xiao Qiao did not sense anything. Instead, he screamed in fear. The ceiling of the mausoleum palace suddenly opened its mouth like an evil spirit. It suddenly aimed at Yi Fei and took a deep breath. Xiao Qiao, who was very afraid of ghosts, was so scared that his face turned pale. Yi Fei's face also turned pale. He realized that as the dome opened like a coffin, his body was moving uncontrollably toward the interior of the mausoleum. Clang! At the crucial moment, Yi Fei quickly stabbed the black iron-heavy sword into the ground. Even so, his body was still moving rapidly toward the interior of the mausoleum. The ground was plowed by the heavy sword, leaving a deep mark like a ravine. Yi Fei's body was also quickly sucked into the interior of the mausoleum like quicksand. After that, he saw an even more terrifying scene. He saw that there was a huge thunder coffin that was formed purely by lightning inside the mausoleum. Around the thunder coffin, there were 5 god pillars erected. Feeling the aura of the god pillars, the dragon turtle in the beast mark space suddenly started to tremble. After all, the dragon turtle was also a dragon species. The 5 god pillars that surrounded the thunder coffin were evolved from the bones of 5 real divine dragons. Moreover, through the aura of the bones, Yi Fei was shocked and speculated that these 5 divine dragons were most likely powerful existences at the monarch god realm. It was a pity that these 5 monarch god divine dragons were killed by someone. The dragon bones were made into god pillars, and the dragon skin became the treasure map for Rinzu's treasure. Squeak, squeak! Xiao Qiao suddenly discovered something and screamed even more terrifyingly. It was a ghostly hand that stretched out from the void. It seemed like it wanted to pass through the beastmark space and grab Xiao Qiao to eat. This made Xiao Qiao, who was very afraid of ghosts, jump into the immortal crystal bed with a swoosh. He covered his entire body with a blanket. However, in Yi Fei's eyes, it was not a ghostly hand. It was clearly a ghostly corpse claw that Bai Lung's ghost infant had turned into. However, such a ghostly hand seemed even more terrifying in this eerie mausoleum. What was strange was that Bai Lung's body did not appear. Only his ghostly corpse claw came crazily with a shriek. Yi Fei's battle instincts also made him subconsciously wave his dark iron-heavy sword and slash at the incoming ghostly corpse claw. However, at this moment, the surrounding space suddenly became extremely cold. Even the heavy sword that Yi Fei was waving was frozen into a terrifying layer of ice. Great ice ceiling art, Xiaoyang. Yi Fei enunciated each word clearly as he sensed the source of the cold air. Then, he saw 2 iron fists condensing the light of warhammers coming from the other side. It seemed like they were going to smash his head. Battle King Fist, Qin Wuyang. Yi Fei looked even more furious. Is it your turn now, Lu Qianzhong? The golden body of laws shone with a blazing light. Facing the attacks of Xiao Yang and the other 2, Yi Fei did not even look at them. He only focused on waiting for Lu Qianzhong's fatal blow. However, he could not figure out the reason why these people did not fight for Rize's inheritance. Instead, they suddenly joined forces to target the person who was the most vulnerable. The one who came in later was himself. Boom! Bai Lung's ghostly corpse claw and Battle King Fist landed on Yi Fei's body at the same time. However, Yi Fei did not move at all. His mid-stage Dominator realm and the powerful defense of the golden body of laws allowed him to successfully block the attacks of these 2 people. Then, a sky full of ice whizzed towards Yi Fei. At this moment, there was a shocking purple-gold flame on Yi Fei's body. The intense flame easily shattered the sky full of ice. The The black iron heavy sword in his hand also shattered the layer of ice. However, Yifei still did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he was on guard against Lu Qianzhong's possible sneak attack. However, the strange thing was that Bai Lung and the other two's divine abilities were endless. However, Lu Qianzhong did not show any signs of attacking. Moreover, the more Yifei fought, the more confused he became. He did not see Lu Qianzhong, Bai Lung, and the others. However, their divine abilities seemed to appear out of thin air. Now, they were continuously attacking him. Could this be an illusion? After fighting in a land for many years, Yifei thought of a possibility. He stopped fighting against these divine abilities that appeared out of thin air. Instead, he started to retreat quickly, wanting to rush out of this mausoleum. However, just as Yifei was about to fly up, suddenly, a crack appeared in the thunder casket in the middle of the 5 god pillars. From the crack, there seemed to be the sound of thunder. Boom! Chapter 2162. The tomb of the lightning ancestor was shaped like a palace. On the ground were 5 huge pillars made of divine dragon bones, and in the middle of the pillars was a huge coffin made of thunder. Because the coffin was so large and exquisite, it looked like the dome of the palace, and was divided into 5 parts by the 5 divine dragon bones. The 5 pillars were supported by the rules. At this moment, Bai Lung, Qin Weiyang, and Xiao Yang, the 3 royals, were each tied to a pillar made of divine dragon bones. It was unknown if they had blasphemed Rizu's thunderous coffin, but there were 5 mysterious thunderous chains hanging down from the thunderous coffin. These chains were connected to the pillars and then wrapped around Bai Lung, Qin Weiyang, and Xiao Yang. On the 4th pillar, Yifei also discovered Lu Qianzhong. He was also tied to a pillar and was wrapped in chains. However, Lu Qianzhong wasn't like Bai Lung and the others. He wasn't separated from Yifei. Kong didn't activate his mystique. Instead, he closed his eyes and seemed to be struggling. What was even stranger was that when Yifei fell into the middle of the 5 pillars, which was also under the dome of the thunderous coffin, Bai Lung and the other 2 were completely bound to the pillars by the thunderous chains. They couldn't even move a finger, let alone activate their mystiques. If that was the case, then what was going on with those divine abilities that attacked him outside? Could it really be an illusion? Finally, Yifei's gaze fell on Lu Qianzhong. Outside, Lu Qianzhong was the only one who hadn't used his mystique to attack him. Perhaps only from this person would he know what had happened here and what kind of test Rizu had set for him. More importantly, he wanted to take the real token from Lu Qianzhong that could lift the seal on a divine lord. Yifei lifted his leg and rushed towards Lu Qianzhong. Then he felt a huge pulling force on his body. Not only was he unable to get close to Lu Qianzhong, but he was also forcefully bound to the 5th pillar. What's going on? Since when did a lightning chain wrap around my waist? This chain was almost transparent. When it wrapped around him, Yifei did not feel anything at all. This was not because he was careless, but because this lightning chain was too strange. When Yifei didn't move, it didn't move at all. But the moment Yifei activated his profound energy, the chain seemed to have been activated. The transparent chains suddenly turned into countless bolts of lightning. Like a giant divine python with infinite strength, they coiled around Yifei and dragged him towards the 5th pillar. Break! Yifei's expression changed drastically. He immediately raised the black iron heavy sword in his hand and furiously slashed at the strange lightning chain. Roar! A strange, ghostly howl came from the thunderbolt casket. It wasn't a real, ghostly howl, but the 5 divine dragon bones that had been refined into pillars. They were howling sorrowfully and angrily. These 5 divine dragons had been divine lords when they were alive, but they had been killed by Rizu and refined into pillars that supported the thunderbolt casket. That kind of resentment and unwillingness was like a hurricane rushing towards Yifei. He simply could not resist. His body had already been forcefully dragged to the top of the 5th divine pillar by an incomparably terrifying power of the ghost god. He was tightly bound and could no longer raise the black iron heavy sword. Golden body of laws. Yifei's body was like fire. Since the heavy sword could not be used, he immediately released the Vermilion Bird's Law. Boundless flames engulfed him and the entire pillar. He wanted to burn the pillar and the chains together. Boom! At the same time, the voice of a divine dragon was heard from Yi Fei's body. It was like the anger of an azure dragon. He activated the azure dragon's law in an attempt to break the chains completely. His struggle caused the entire divine pillar to tremble violently. It felt as though a demonic god had been completely enraged. Roar! Suddenly, a roar came from the heavens and earth. It was a dragon's roar that shattered the sky and its claws that tore the earth apart. In front of Yi Fei, the lightning chain that was wrapped around his body had turned into a mighty divine dragon. That divine dragon's body was as big as the heavens and earth. In front of this divine dragon, Yi Fei was like an ant. He felt like an ant looking up at a mountain. His spirit was instantly impacted greatly. What a terrifying dragon aura. This must be the aura of a divine lord when the divine dragon was alive. No wonder Bai Lung and the others were bound by the chains the moment they stepped in. They even seemed to have lost their consciousness. After all, although Bai Lung and the other two were strong, they were only limited to the geniuses of Qingzhou. The strongest realm they had seen was a Tao Lord. Qingzhou didn't have a divine lord, so they naturally couldn't sense the aura of a divine lord. At this moment, Bai Lung and the other two couldn't withstand the sudden eruption of a divine lord's aura. However, it was different for Lu Qianzhong. He was the son of a divine lord and had experienced the aura of a divine lord for many years. Hence, he already had the ability to resist it. Hence, when Bai Lung and the other two's consciousness fell into the aura of a divine lord and were unable to extricate themselves, Lu Qianzhong could still struggle and continue to resist the aura of a divine lord. As he thought of this, Yi Fei suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Why did this tomb of Rizu not feel like a land of inheritance? Instead, it felt like he had stepped into a trap. Roar! The divine dragon revealed its dragon body, and its mighty aura formed the most terrifying pressure in the world. It seemed like it wanted to make Yi Fei fall into fear and sink into oblivion. In response, Yi Fei's lips curled into a cold smile. If I hadn't experienced the aura of a divine lord, I might have really been frightened by you and lost my mind. That would have given you an opportunity to take advantage of it. However, it's a pity that you are just a divine lord. Do you really think that you can scare me? After all, the heavenly Tao tree in the paradise world was a half-step divine lord. Furthermore, the heavenly Tao tree itself was an incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Hence, a half-step divine lord's heavenly Tao tree possessed the aura of a divine lord. Furthermore, he had even seen and felt the consciousness of a Rinzu realm expert like the Ninth Heaven Swordmaster. To be honest, the sudden appearance of a divine lord's aura wasn't enough to scare him. Not only that, when the ghostly dragon revealed its dragon form and unleashed the might of a divine lord, Yi Fei glared at it and strode toward it with large strides. At this moment, the aura of a divine lord targeted his consciousness and not his body. Hence, in his consciousness, Yi Fei was free. His body wasn't bound by the lightning chains. In other words, in this consciousness space, Yi Fei could do whatever he wanted. After all, this was his consciousness space. He was the master of this place. The divine dragon was an outsider who had suddenly intruded. It was like a nightmare in one sleep. Boom. Chapter 2163. However, Yi Fei was different. From the earth realm to the heaven realm, he had experienced too many life and death situations. The more critical the situation was, the calmer he became. Shatter. Divine 5 lightning clock. Boom. Boom. Yi Fei activated his strongest mystique in his consciousness. The divine 5 lightning clock transformed into a golden divine clock that enveloped him completely. Then, Yi Fei faced the challenge head-on. Suddenly, 2 more divine clocks appeared in his hands. The real 5 Thunders divine clock could be condensed into 5 bells. It was just that Jiang Zhen's perception wasn't high enough, so he couldn't comprehend it. As for Yi Fei, what he didn't lack the least was perception. Boom! Boom! Yi Fei threw out the two condensed divine clocks with all his might. Then, countless lightning bolts appeared at his feet and condensed into two more divine clocks. Who said that divine clocks could only be formed by hands? At this moment, Yi Fei used his feet for the first time to condense two more divine clocks. He kicked with all his might. The four divine clocks had already transformed into four roaring lightning bolts that exploded on the body of the huge divine dragon. The divine dragon immediately let out an angry roar that was filled with resentment. It was as if it was furious that Yi Fei had seen through its facade. Boom! That enormous dragon claw landed on Yi Fei's fifth god bell. Unexpectedly, although the dragon claw looked ferocious like a demon god, its attack power was pitifully weak. Yi Fei couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then, he came to a realization. That's right. Even if this divine dragon was a Sir God when it was alive, after it died, not only did it lose its celestial soul, even its dragon bones were refined into divine pillars to support the huge divine lightning coffin. It looks ferocious, but it is only strong on the outside and weak on the inside. It can only scare people. As long as he saw through this, Yi Fei no longer had any fear in his heart when he faced the huge divine dragon again. Only endless fighting spirit burned in his body like a raging fire. Kill! Without giving the mystical dragon a chance to retaliate, Yi Fei released another four god bells from his hands and feet, following which Yi Fei spat out lightning from his mouth. Who said that he could only use his feet to form god bells? He could still use his profound energy and spit out the divine bell. Yi Fei had broken through to the middle stage of the Dominator realm, and his fate wheels had been upgraded from 9 to 11. This undoubtedly inspired him greatly. His thinking became more flexible. All sorts of strange and wonderful ideas were completely revealed through his martial arts. And in the face of Yi Fei's crazy divine clock that didn't follow common sense, even the spectral dragon, who had been a divine lord when it was alive, felt sluggish. Following that, the spectral dragon let out an angry and indignant roar. After being exposed as a paper tiger, the divine dragon was no longer an obstacle to Yi Fei. On the contrary, Cheng had become a meat shield for Yi Fei's martial arts. Under the bombardment of the rolling lightning god bells, the ridiculously huge mystical dragon was quickly blasted into pieces. It turned into a puff of green smoke and completely dissipated in Yi Fei's consciousness. Phew! I have finally broken free of the divine dragon's resentment. As the mystical dragon dissipated, Yi Fei's vision returned to normal. The mysterious thunderclap coffin was still in the sky. 5 huge lightning chains hung down from it. As they wrapped around the dragon-bone divine pillar, they also bound Yi Fei and the other 4 tightly. They were firmly bound to the divine pillar and continuously attacked by the divine dragon's resentment. Under this attack, Xiao Yang's face turned pale and his body trembled. Qin Weiyang's face was contorted and his veins were bulging. Bai Lung's ghostly howls were incessant. He seemed to be experiencing terrible torture. This was also the reason why Yi Fei had heard the ghostly howls outside. It was obvious that Bai Lung and the other 2 royals were not very determined. They were still unable to break free of the divine dragon's resentment that had invaded their consciousness. However, Lu Qianzhong was indeed extraordinary. Just as Yi Fei killed the resentment of the divine dragon and returned to normal, on the other side, Lu Qianzhong, who was tightly tied to the god's pillar, let out a roar of relief. I have finally succeeded. I have finally walked out of that damned divine dragon's resentment. So what if Yi Fei won first place on the Thunder Ancient Path? I, Lu Qianzhong, am not the first to wake up in this last test. Cough, cough. Yi Fei cannot bear to listen any longer. He coughed unhappily to indicate that there were other people present. Lu Qianzhong also instinctively looked at Yi Fei. Then, his originally smug face turned ugly as though he had eaten a fly. His face turned from red to green and from green to purple. If possible, Lu Qianzhong really wanted to stab Yi Fei to death with his spear. Why is it that when I am at my most smug, a lowly commoner like you always appears. Perhaps this is called fate, Yi Fei said seriously. Lu Qianzhong had the urge to vomit blood when he heard that. He wore a smile on his face, but there was a terrifying, murderous aura around him. Haha, you're right. We are indeed fated. However, it is the fate of death. Yi Fei, you have spoiled my plans time and time again. If I don't kill you today, I will not be able to maintain my dignity. Boom! The dark force in Lu Qianzhong's body surged like raging waves and rivers. It was also like a crazy divine dragon. He was trying to break free from the thunder chain that was wrapped around his body. However, Yi Fei was not slow either. He raised his dark iron sword again and slashed at the thunder chain that was still tied around his waist. However, Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong lifted their heads at the same time and looked at each other in shock. We cannot break this chain with our own strength. Both of us have to work together to break it. Yi Fei's face instantly turned ugly. Lu Qianzhong's face turned gloomy too. Very quickly, he thought of something, and his gloomy expression turned arrogant again. Incomparably cold and arrogant, he said, Yi Fei, consider yourself lucky. I can spare your life as long as you help me break these damned chains on my body. Help you? You can't wait to kill me. Unless my brain is damaged, I will not help you. Yi Fei sneered. Why don't you help me first, then I will help you. Scram, don't think that you can bargain with me just because you have some ability. You and I are from two different worlds. Lu Qianzhong's expression was cold and arrogant. Even though he was wary of Yi Fei's strength, Yi Fei's identity as a person from the land still filled him with disdain and disdain. Then, he took out a token and ordered coldly, Come over and cooperate with me to break the chain on your body. If you dare to refuse, I will destroy this token now, and your woman can only live with a Sir God's restriction on her dark iron mask forever. Yi Fei stared at Lu Qianzhong coldly. This is the second time you have used such a vicious method to threaten me. What I hate the most is being threatened by others. You've succeeded in provoking my killing intent. So what? As long as this token is in my hands, you still have to listen to my orders obediently. Lu Qianzhong said coldly. Yi Fei didn't say anything and only sighed helplessly. Then, he walked towards Lu Qianzhong with difficulty. The thunder chain that was wrapped around his back was continuously lengthening. Every time it lengthened, his body felt as though it was being strangled by an iron hoop. It was extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 2164. Yi Fei, how dare you plot against me? Lu Qianzhong roared furiously. Aren't you the same? A cold smile flashed across Yi Fei's face. Lu Qianzhong had threatened him once, but he was threatening him a second time. How could Yi Fei tolerate this? Moreover, he didn't believe that Lu Qianzhong would hand over the token after threatening him. Hence, he decided to make the first move and snatch the token from Lu Qianzhong. The only thing that Yi Fei didn't expect was that Lu Qianzhong had the same idea as him. Just as the two of them got closer and the dark iron heavy sword slashed out, a lightning-like divine spear pierced towards Yi Fei's throat at the same time. Clang! In the end, the heavy sword and the divine spear clashed in the air. There was a shocking wave of dark qi, but the dark qi didn't dissipate. Instead, it was absorbed by the lightning chains around their waists. Yi Fei's expression instantly became extremely solemn, even more solemn than when he faced Lu Qianzhong. Previously, I felt that it was very strange. Is this the lightning ancestor's test or a trap? These chains can trap us, but they can actually absorb our dark qi. Humph! That's because you are inexperienced. No matter if this is a test or a trap, only I, Lu Qianzhong, can obtain Rizu's inheritance. Get lost. Boom! Boundless lightning spear radiance exploded from Lu Qianzhong's divine spear. He waved the divine spear again, forming countless lightning bolts and thunderbolts that pierced forward continuously. The dark iron heavy sword in Yi Fei's hand also emitted dazzling divine runes. He actually activated the third-level divine runes at the same time, causing the power of the dark iron heavy sword to reach the level of the Lord of Heaven. In addition, Yi Fei's physical strength was comparable to that of the Lord of Heaven. His sword smashed out, smashing a dark hole in space. The power was so strong that a violent spatial storm swept through the entire void. Lu Qianzhong held the divine spear in his hand and stood proudly like a fiend god in the middle of this storm. An ominous glint flickered in his eyes as a sinister smile appeared on his face. At this moment, the sixth-ranked divine spear in his hand started to burn with a special light. That wasn't the light of divine inscriptions, but the light of the self-detonation of the sixth-ranked divine spear. Yi Fei, do you know why I want you to get close to me? Because only when you're close enough can the self-destruction of the spear kill you. Aren't you trying so hard for this token? I'll give it to you now. The self-destruction of the godly spear wasn't enough. In order to prevent Yi Fei from retreating, Lu Qianzhong viciously threw the token that could remove the seal on the Sir God on the ground. At this moment, if Yi Fei retreated, the token that could remove the seal on the Sir God would explode into dust. However, if he moved forward, he would have to face the threat of the self-destruction of the sixth-ranked divine spear. In an instant, a huge problem appeared in front of Yi Fei. However, what shocked Lu Qianzhong was that Yi Fei didn't hesitate at all. The moment he threw the token, Yi Fei's hand had already reached for it. Lu Qianzhong's face flashed with a sinister smile as he said disdainfully, "I knew that you would do this. Do you know why I look down on you? It's because you are too sentimental, and I happen to be the kind of person who will do anything for benefits." Godly spear explode. Boom! The moment Yi Fei grabbed the token, the sixth-ranked weapon in Lu Qianzhong's hand exploded between the two of them. The force of the explosion was like an attack from a Sir God, causing cracks to appear in the void. This was Lu Qianzhong's strongest trump card. Not only so, when the divine weapon exploded, a jade medallion flew out from the neck of the son of the Divine Lord. That jade medallion was a protective jade pendant created by the Divine Lord himself. It was sufficient to block the impact of a sixth-ranked divine weapon. On the other hand, Yi Fei didn't have Lu Qianzhong's background. However, since he dared to charge into the explosion of the sixth-ranked weapon, he naturally wasn't impulsive. At the same time, when Yi Fei decided to charge forward, a bottle of heavenly divine liquid appeared in his hand. This was the blood essence refined from the heavenly divine tree. Consuming a drop of it would allow Yi Fei to obtain a trace of a Sir God's origin. With this origin, Yi Fei could unleash an attack that was comparable to a Sir God's. At this moment, Yi Fei swallowed the drop of heavenly divine liquid into his stomach. Instantly, the blood in his body burned like a raging fire. The black iron heavy sword in his hand also exploded with a terrifying divine sword light. This light tore apart the heavens and earth, as well as the impact of the explosion of the sixth-ranked weapon. This is impossible. He's just a commoner who was smuggled from the Earth domain. How could he obtain a Sir God's origin to unleash an attack that is comparable to a Sir God's? Damn it. I will definitely not let him obtain Rizu's inheritance. That kind of inheritance can only belong to me. Ha! The intense sword light and the energy from the explosion of the sixth-rank divine weapon finally shattered Lu Qianzhong's final protective jade tablet. However, Lu Qianzhong himself wasn't injured at all. Furthermore, he was completely uninjured and even had the absolute advantage. This advantage finally made Lu Qianzhong have a huge killing intent. A fifth-ranked divine spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The sharp spear light was accompanied by terrifying lightning. He wanted to take advantage of the time when Yi Fei exhausted his profound qi after unleashing the Sir God's attack to kill Yi Fei instantly. Clang! At the crucial moment, Yi Fei once again used the black iron heavy sword as a shield and blocked in front of him. However, with his profound qi exhausted, the black iron heavy sword wasn't enough to block Lu Qianzhong's attack. Lu Qianzhong was uninjured, and he spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, Lu Qianzhong's divine spear didn't kill Yi Fei because Yi Fei finally took out the dragon turtle at the crucial moment. Although the dragon turtle couldn't even last one round in front of Lu Qianzhong, If the dragon turtle only bit Yi Fei and retreated quickly, it would be more than enough. This caused Lu Qianzhong's killing intent to fail completely. Lu Qianzhong was suddenly furious. Damn it! You actually hit a turtle on your body. I want to kill, I want to kill. Roar. Lu Qianzhong's voice didn't last long. The explosion of the 6th-ranked divine spear, Yi Fei's her god's attack, and the majestic, profound qi released during the battle were all absorbed by the lightning chains on their bodies. At this moment, it seemed that the lightning chains had reached the limit of what they could contain. The 2 lightning chains were like sleeping divine dragons that were awakened from their dreams. The divine pillars behind the 2 of them suddenly released a terrifying divine dragon aura. In front of this divine dragon aura, the dragon turtle that was biting Yi Fei and running all over the ground suddenly became like a small turtle cub. Its entire body went soft and was roared at. Chapter 2165. Yi Fei then realized that the lightning chains that trapped them were actually the dragon souls of gods. Not only were their dragon bones refined into pillars, but even their dragon souls were refined into special lightning chains. He finally understood why the thunderbolt coffin in the palace released a terrifying suction force when he sensed that something was amiss and wanted to leave the palace. The suction force pulled him into the middle of the 5 pillars. It's obvious that this is a trap. There's no Rizu's treasure or Rizu's inheritance here. This might be a trap set up by Rizu. Yi Fei's face darkened. He tried his best to break the lightning chains formed by the dragon souls. After hearing Yi Fei's words, Lu Qianzhong decided not to attack Yi Fei anymore. His body suddenly burned with a layer of blood-red light. At the same time, the divine spear in his hand expanded and exploded once again. Along with a loud bang, the thunder chain on Lu Qianzhong's body exploded. The lightning chains exploded into 2. Wah! Lu Qianzhong was seriously injured by the self-destruction of the divine weapon at such a close distance. However, he didn't care about healing his injuries or killing Yi Fei. The moment he broke free, he rushed towards the thunderbolt coffin in a frenzy. Boom! As though it had sensed Lu Qianzhong's approach, the thunderbolt coffin suddenly withdrew its boundless thunderbolts and turned into an ordinary ancient golden coffin. There was also a huge thunderbolt divine blade on top of the golden coffin that was exuding a heaven-like divine power. Renzu's might? Could that saber be the weapon of the human ancestor that the lightning ancestor used? Yi Fei's face was filled with astonishment, and he wasn't sure if this was a trap or some sort of test set up by the lightning ancestor. 5 people would fight it out, and only one of them would be able to free themselves from the chains, pull out the weapon, and acquire it. Inheritance? All of this seems to be reasonable. However, why do I keep having a very uneasy feeling in my heart? Yi Fei's heart was heavy. He was hesitant. Lu Qianzhong had used the self-destruction of his divine weapon to break the lightning chains. Did he have to do the same to break free? However, the only divine weapon he had was the black iron heavy sword. It was because of this heavy sword that he could compete with a genius like Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei couldn't bear to destroy it. While Yi Fei couldn't bear to part with it, Lu Qianzhong laughed maniacally and rushed towards the thunderbolt coffin at his fastest speed. Ha ha! I told you that Rizu's inheritance must be mine. No one could take it away from me. Only I, Lu Qianzhong, am qualified to become the new Rizu. Boom! Lu Qianzhong rushed forward and held his blade with both hands. He wanted to pull out the human ancestor's weapon. At this moment, the uneasiness in Yi Fei's heart intensified. He suddenly realized that the lightning chains that bound the 5 of them wasn't connected to the thunderbolt coffin, was Rizu's inheritance. When Bing spoke, Yi Fei suddenly felt a huge fear in his heart. Something's not right. Why would Rizu set up such a strange test? Why would they connect the chains on Renzu's weapons to our bodies? At the same time, the awakened dragon souls and the lightning chains were also very strange. They had swallowed a large amount of dark force from the battle between him and Lu Qianzhong, as well as by Lung and the other 2. Where did the dark force go in the end? Lu Qianzhong, don't pull out the saber. A strong sense of uneasiness made Yi Fei roar. He even planned to explode his dark steel heavy sword to break the chains on his body. After all, the heavy sword was important, but his life was even more important. But Yi Fei's reminder was a step too late. Lu Qianzhong had already pulled out the human ancestor's weapon from the ancient golden coffin in ecstasy. Boom! Just as the Renzu weapon left the ancient coffin, Yi Fei suddenly felt a terrifying suction force from the chains that bound him. It started to crazily absorb all the energy in his body. Lu Qianzhong, who had pulled out the Renzu weapon, was very pleased with himself a moment ago. He thought that he could obtain Rizu's inheritance by pulling out the saber. But in the next moment, Lu Qianzhong screamed in horror. Why? This saber is crazily absorbing my bloodline power. No, it's even swallowing my spirit. Soul, this isn't Rizu's inheritance at all. Then, another ancient voice came out of Lu Qianzhong's mouth. No, you have indeed obtained my inheritance. But the price you have to pay for obtaining my inheritance is to offer your body and your spirit to bear the glory of my consciousness. Boom! Lu Qianzhong held the Renzu weapon in his hand. His bloodline and spirit were crazily absorbed by the Renzu weapon. Not only him, but the other 4 chains on the Renzu weapon also released a terrifying suction force. They started to absorb the bloodline power of Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang at the same time. Yi Fei broke out in cold sweat. How could he not understand that Rizu's inheritance? It was a trap set by Rizu to revive himself. For this, Rizu didn't hesitate to deceive everyone in Qingzhou, including his most loyal subordinates. Black Iron Heavy Sword explode. Yi Fei didn't regret it anymore. He wanted to detonate the divine weapon as fast as he could and escape from this terrifying trap. But soon, his body became extremely weak. The lightning chains that bound him were like leeches, crazily absorbing the energy. They were absorbing the energy in his body. His meager demon god bloodline, his god power, and even his sovereign divine body showed signs of being robbed. Yi Fei's face flashed with shock. Other than the undying sword soul, he had never seen such a terrifying and domineering way of robbing power. Wait, the undying sword soul. Yi Fei raised his head again and looked at the Ren ancestor's weapon in Lu Qianzhong's hand. He suddenly had a strange feeling. If it wasn't a saber, but a sword, the lightning ancestor's method of plundering was very similar to the undying sword soul. Does that mean that I can also use the undying sword soul to absorb the energy of the Renzu weapon? No matter what, it's worth a gamble. After all, if he allowed the Renzu weapon to absorb his energy, Yi Fei estimated that he would become a dried corpse soon. In order to survive, Yi Fei could only go all out. Instantly, his consciousness activated the undying sword token in his Heaven Palace divine soul. At the same time, an invisible sword vortex started to spin around Yi Fei's body. Undying sword soul, absorb. Absorb with all your might. Chapter 2166. Yi Fei had never felt that the undying sword soul could be so terrifying when it was enraged. Rizu's Renzu soldiers could steal the bloodline and power of others. It was already terrifying enough, but the undying sword soul was even more terrifying, because the undying sword soul could directly steal the power of Renzu soldiers. Under the full absorption of the indestructible sword soul, in just a dozen breaths of time, the profound energy in his body that had been completely depleted was instantly replenished. Then, when his dark force was full, the undying sword soul began to absorb the bloodline power of Renzu's soldiers through the lightning chains. These bloodline powers were obtained by Rizu through Renzu's soldiers. They had frantically plundered Lu Qianzhong, Qin Wuyang, Bai Lung, and Xiao Yang. Originally, these powers were the key to Rizu's resurrection. But now, after being plundered by Renzu soldiers, they were absorbed by the undying sword soul. They formed an endless stream of bloodline powers and entered Yi Fei's body. Under the stimulation of these bloodline powers, Yi Fei's blood boiled like boiling water. His meridians, his bones, his flesh, and even his cells exploded with a shocking power when the bloodline powers entered his body. This power was something that Yi Fei had never felt before. It was power, but it was power that erupted from the depths of his bloodline. Yi Fei was shocked. He suddenly remembered the heavenly Tao tree. There was a type of bloodline in the Earth domain called the Earthly Emperor's bloodline. This was a bloodline that even gods and demons feared. Therefore, anyone who possessed the Earthly Emperor's bloodline will be naturally sealed and rejected by the heavenly Tao. Humans. However, even the heavenly Tao tree did not know how to break this natural bloodline seal and awaken the Earthly Emperor's bloodline. Could it be that if I use the undying sword soul to absorb a large amount of bloodline powers, I can awaken the sealed Earthly Emperor's bloodline in my body? As for whether it was true or not, Yi Fei did not hesitate. Previously, he had ordered the undying sword soul to absorb as much as he could. Now, he was absorbing as much as he could. As more and more bloodline energy surged into Yi Fei's body, he suddenly felt that his blood was no longer boiling. Instead, it was evaporating into steam within his body. Yi Fei's brazen action of absorbing the bloodline powers finally attracted the attention of Lu Qianzhong, who had turned into Rizhu. Rizhu was trying his best to take over Lu Qianzhong's body, but he did not expect that there was someone under the 5 god pillars that could turn the tables and steal Rinzu's bloodline powers. Rinzu, kill. This person. Lu Qianzhong suddenly let out a violent roar. His eyes were red. He was completely under the control of Rinzu's bloodline powers. After that, a lightning-like saber light tore through the void and instantly slashed towards Yi Fei. However, Yi Fei didn't seem to have noticed it. It wasn't that Yi Fei didn't want to dodge, but rather, it was simply impossible for him to do so at this moment. The bloodline energy he had absorbed was simply too much and too powerful. This power was like a raging inferno that kept burning within his body. At the same time, an even more violent and mysterious power was awakening within Yi Fei's body bit by bit. Die! Lu Qianzhong's lightning-like blade light blasted towards Yi Fei at the fastest speed. The dragon turtle at the side could not bear to watch any longer. It immediately opened its mouth and tried to bite Yi Fei before retreating. However, the dragon turtle did not succeed this time. Just as the dragon turtle got close to Yi Fei, a majestic power suddenly erupted from Yi Fei's body. It was the power of bloodline. When this power appeared, a mysterious message suddenly appeared in Yi Fei's mind. This message was an extremely powerful natural superpower. At the same time, Lu Qianzhong's blade light had already reached Yi Fei. It seemed like it would kill Yi Fei in the next second. Suddenly, Yi Fei's eyes opened. Boundless bloodline power erupted from his body. Finally, it formed an incomparably resplendent blood-red sword light. It slashed forward. Bam! Lu Qianzhong's blade light was instantly engulfed by the sword light. Then, Lu Qianzhong's entire body was engulfed by the blood-red sword light and destroyed. Finally, when the sword light disappeared, Lu Qianzhong was no longer in front of Yi Fei. There was only a cold and broken corpse. Beside the corpse, there was a human ancestor's weapon. Before Lu Qianzhong could unleash the power of this Rinzu's weapon, he was instantly killed by Yi Fei's god's tribulation. Yi Fei was stunned. He couldn't believe that the natural superpower that he had unleashed would have such terrifying power. Beside Lu Qianzhong's corpse, Rizu's shocked voice came from within Rinzu's weapon. Who are you? How can your bloodline power be so ridiculously strong? I made up my mind. I want her bloodline. Only our human ancestor deserves such power. Boom! Lightning flashed. Boundless lightning rushed out from Rinzu's weapon and quickly formed a lightning giant. This giant was the consciousness that Rizu had hidden in the weapon. After being shocked by Yi Fei's terrifying natural superpower, Rizu immediately made a decision. He wanted to seize control of Yi Fei's terrifying bloodline, as well as Yi Fei's. For this reason, Rizu didn't hesitate to use his main body's consciousness and rushed out. Yi Fei finally recovered from the shock of releasing the god's tribulation. Then, without a word, he released the god's tribulation again according to the information that appeared in his mind. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed this time because the bloodline power that supported him had been completely used up. With the depletion of the bloodline power, the awakened Emperor Earth's bloodline in Yi Fei's body immediately fell into a deep sleep and couldn't be sensed anymore. Yi Fei's face turned pale. Why does it seem like my bloodline has been sealed again? Haha, why? Because the bloodline in your body is too strong. That kind of power isn't something that you can completely awaken just by absorbing some bloodline energy. You can only temporarily awaken it. But this Lord can replace you and control it forever. Now, hand over your body and your bloodline. Then you can go and die. A huge lightning palm, carrying Rizu's anger and killing intent, suddenly grabbed Yi Fei's body. It was as if it wanted to grab Yi Fei's soul from the Sky Palace. This was Rinzu's power. Even if it was just a wisp of consciousness, it still had a terrifying attack power. However, Rizu had been dead for thousands of years. Even if he used a secret technique to protect his Rinzu's origin and consciousness from dissipating, once his consciousness left the divine weapon and was exposed to the outside world, even Rinzu's origin and consciousness would be quickly depleted and dissipated until they were destroyed by the laws of heaven and earth. Chapter 2167. Yi Fei didn't just sit there and wait for his death. Instead, he raised his dark-steel heavy sword and slashed at Rizu. At the same time, he retreated rapidly, trying to escape the attack range of the lightning palm. You can't escape. Your body and bloodline are destined to belong to me. Don't you want to inherit my legacy? I'll fulfill your wish now and turn you into the new Rizu. Although Rizu said that, he had no intention of fulfilling Yi Fei's wish. The lightning palm easily slapped the dark steel heavy sword out of his hand, tearing a deep wound on his palm. Then, Yi Fei felt a suffocating lightning force. It shook him so much that blood came out of his ears and nose. His body trembled. However, Rizu had no intention of harming Yi Fei's body. After all, the bloodline hidden in Yi Fei's body had aroused Rinzu's greed. Otherwise, when Yi Fei used the god's tribulation to kill Lu Qianzhong, Rizu could have controlled Rinzu's troops and killed Yi Fei on the spot. Boom! The gigantic palm of lightning finally came crashing down, directly covering Yi Fei's head. Under the terrifying might of the human ancestor's consciousness, Yi Fei had no way of resisting at all. There was no other way. The difference in their cultivation levels was just too great. Soon, he felt a terrifying divine sense enter his body from the lightning palm. It seemed to want to forcibly open his sky palace and shatter his soul. Then, it would completely take over his body and steal his bloodline. Rizu has begun the possession. Yi Fei's face was pale. He couldn't resist the invasion of Rizu's divine sense. In a daze, he seemed to see a majestic man with lightning all over his body walking out of the void. He was getting closer and closer to his sky palace. Next, this man would walk into his sky palace and steal everything from him. Roar! It was also at this moment that the dragon turtle's roar sounded in Yi Fei's ears. Seeing that Yi Fei was in danger, the dragon turtle suddenly became extremely huge. Like a tumbling mountain, it slammed towards the lightning giant. Rizu's divine sense immediately stopped and stared disdainfully at the dragon turtle. A little turtle of the heavenly venerable realm? Your loyalty is not bad, but you've raised it too well. Get lost, you can't stop me. Boom! Rizu only extended a huge lightning finger and gently poked at the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle's huge body was knocked to the ground, unable to cause any damage to Rizu. Big Black, Rizu, I'll fight you to the death. Yi Fei's eyes turned red when he saw the dragon turtle lying on the ground, not knowing if it was still alive or not. He knew that things were looking grim this time. While he decided to fight with his life on the line, he also planned to throw Xiao Qiao and the last woman in the beast mark space far away. Xiao Qiao, take her and leave quickly. Whoosh! Another token was thrown at Xiao Qiao, but Xiao Qiao did not leave. After seeing Yi Fei and the dragon turtle defeated at the same time, Xiao Qiao, who was originally very afraid of ghosts, suddenly did not feel afraid anymore. Instead, a flame of anger burned in his heart. Squeak! Xiao Qiao didn't run away. Instead, she angrily rushed towards the incomparably huge thunder giant with her short legs while holding her vine whip. This giant was none other than the lightning ancestor's divine sense. When the lightning ancestor saw Little Grass, he was shocked. The spirit world has been destroyed. How can there be a spiritual object of heaven and earth in this world? No, you're not a spiritual being. You're an immortal. When Xiao Qiao's vine whip hit Rizu, Rizu quickly realized Xiao Qiao's identity. However, Rizu's powerful divine sense was not hurt by the god-beating whip. Then, another huge lightning palm grabbed at Xiao Qiao. Five Thunder's divine clock, Big Black, take Xiao Qiao and leave quickly. Yi Fei's eyes were red. He blocked the huge lightning palm with his fastest speed. It was a loud bang. This palm hit half of Yi Fei's body, causing half of his body to go numb. His golden body of laws could not withstand the terror of Rizu's divine sense. His body fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. Squeak! Seeing that Yi Fei was seriously injured, Xiao Qiao's face suddenly showed great anger. Then, this anger turned into a mysterious five-colored light that appeared in Xiao Qiao's hand. Whoosh! Xiao Qiao waved a small hand and used this five-colored light to attack Rizu's huge lightning palm. The five-colored light silently blasted a huge hole in the huge lightning palm. Behind the hole was Rizu's shocked and terrified face. At this moment, his originally huge body suddenly shrank to the size of a normal person. It was a middle-aged man covered in lightning. Facing the five-colored light released by Xiao Qiao in anger, the middle-aged man seemed to be extremely afraid. Not only did he not dare to approach Xiao Qiao, he even retreated quickly. He tried to escape. Squeak! You want to leave after bullying Yi Fei? Xiao Qiao will kill you. The dragon turtle raised a small wooden sign and translated Xiao Qiao's words at the same time. Xiao Qiao also looked very angry. Seeing that the five-colored light was effective against Rizu, Xiao Qiao immediately became spirited. He waved his small hand, and an even more terrifying five-colored light formed a terrifying pillar of light. In an instant, it completely enveloped Rizu, who was retreating. No, break for me. Rizu, who was enveloped by the divine light, actually let out an extremely terrified roar. He released lightning in an attempt to break free from the five-colored light and escape back to Renzu's army. Unfortunately, the five-colored light was very tough. No matter how Rizu attacked, he could not break it. However, Xiao Qiao thought of something and suddenly raised his small hand toward the sky. Rizu's consciousness uncontrollably rushed towards the sky. When Xiao Qiao's hand fell, Rizu's consciousness crashed to the ground like a meteor. It landed face first. Rizu was so angry that his consciousness trembled. Yi Fei was also stunned. Could this be the inheritance of the spirit immortal tribe that Xiao Qiao obtained? Now, not only can Xiao Qiao use the deity beating whip to attack souls, but he can also use the five-colored light to imprison Renzu's consciousness. Suddenly, a strong sense of hope rose in Yi Fei's heart. He immediately said to Xiao Qiao, Xiao Qiao, don't stop. Continue to beat him. Beat him as hard as you can. Despicable Rizu, didn't you want to possess me? Didn't you want to steal my bloodline? Now that you've fallen into Xiao Qiao's hands, I'll teach you a lesson. When Yi Fei thought about how Rizu had almost broken into his celestial palace and seized his soul, he broke out in a cold sweat. Xiao Qiao also glared. Xiao Qiao was also very angry right now. And once Xiao Qiao got angry, the consequences would be very serious. Xiao Qiao raised his hand. Rizu's consciousness was immediately immobilized by the five-colored light and thrown into the sky. When Xiao Qiao's hand fell, Rizu's face, which was covered in lightning, crashed to the ground at the fastest speed possible, smashing a deep hole in the ground. Chapter 2168. Let me go. Otherwise, when I wake up, I will make you wish you were dead. Rizu roared. Yifei's expression was cold. You're about to die, yet you still dare to threaten me. It's true that you're the human ancestor, but you're already dead. The current you is nothing more than a consciousness that can't even be considered ghost. Little grass, continue smashing. Smash once, and I will reward you with a Xian vein. Boom! Just as he finished speaking, Xiao Chao heard that he could get a Xian vein for every smash. He was instantly energized. The speed of his little hand instantly became like a violent storm. Yifei suddenly fell heartache. If Riza didn't die, how many Xian veins would he have to give out? Especially when there was a black tortoise beside him. It furtively helped to count, as if it was afraid that Yifei would remember wrongly. Yifei's face twitched violently. But soon, Yifei's eyes lit up again. I don't have that many Xian veins, but these princes and princes must have a lot of Xian stones and Xian veins. Especially Lu Qinzhong. As the son of a divine lord, he must have a lot of treasures on him. Thinking of this, Yifei immediately walked towards Lu Qinzhong's broken corpse and found Lu Qinzhong's space belt. Then, he quickly walked towards the thunder sword that was still stuck in the ground. This was a Rinzu weapon. It was very powerful. Just the aura of Rinzu's origin alone was enough to make Yifei's eyes light up. It was extremely hot. Yifei naturally didn't hold back. Taking advantage of the fact that Rizu's divine consciousness was imprisoned by Xiao Chao, he didn't hold back and happily accepted this Rinzu weapon. Brat, you have gone too far. When my true body awakens, I will definitely kill you. Rizu's divine sense was incomparably furious when he sensed that his divine weapon had been stolen. However, there was nothing he could do. Xiao Chao's five-color divine light seemed to be the natural nemesis of divine sense. No matter how hard Rizu tried, he was unable to break free from the confinement of the divine light. Not only that, as Xiao Chao's divine light continued to smash down and his divine sense was exposed to the outside world for a long time, Rizu's divine sense was greatly damaged. Rizu became completely nervous, and his tone suddenly became soft. Little brother, let me go. I can take you in as my disciple and teach you the great Tao of Rinzu. Rizu's threat failed, so he changed the temptation. Yifei sneered. You even deceived your loyal subordinates and set up such a shocking scam. I don't dare to believe your words. You can forget about the inheritance. However, since you fake your death, you must have hidden a lot of treasures on you. If I'm not wrong, these treasures should be in that golden mountain, in the ancient coffin. With every word Yifei said, Rizu's face turned paler. In the end, Rizu roared, "You can't kill me. Even if you let this little girl destroy my divine sense, my main body will still produce a new one. One day, my main body will be resurrected. When that time comes, you will know. How terrifying would it be to offend Rinzu? Bastard, what are you doing?" Bam! Just as Rizu was cursing and threatening, Yifei had already rushed to the ancient golden coffin and pushed it open. Soon, a middle-aged man with a dignified face and a thunderbolt symbol on his forehead appeared from within the coffin. This middle-aged man looked serene and seemed to be in deep sleep. Only 2 vicious fang marks appeared on his neck. Even after thousands of years, when Yifei opened the ancient coffin, he was almost suffocated by the aura emitted by the fang marks. He hurriedly held his breath and activated his golden body of laws. Only then was he able to resist the aura of the fang marks. His heart was also filled with shock. What kind of fang are these? They are so terrifying that even Rinzu couldn't resist them and could only fake his death to prolong his life. Yifei's expression was grave, but his eyes quickly brightened. Besides the fang marks on Rizu's body, he also found a very exquisite space belt. Needless to say, this was Rizu's space belt. Yifei didn't dare to touch Rizu's body with his hands. Instead, he condensed 2 hands of dark force, reached in, and grabbed the gorgeous space belt. This exalted crystal love. Vile creature, shameless thief. You snatched away this exalted ancestral armament, and even dared to snatch away this exalted crystal love. Rizu was furious. His divine sense burned like a raging fire. Clearly, This space belt called Crystal Love was very important to Rizu. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Seeing that Rizu refused to be obedient even after being imprisoned and even threatened Yi Fei, Xiao Qiao was even angrier now. He waved his little hands even faster. Next to Xiao Qiao stood a big black tortoise. It held a small wooden tablet and kept recording Xiao Qiao's beatings. The number of times Rizu was recorded. For example, every time Xiao Qiao threw Rizu up, the dragon tortoise would record twice. Every time Rizu fell down, the dragon tortoise would record thrice. Originally, Xiao Qiao was still counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and was very clear. However, when the dragon tortoise interrupted, Xiao Qiao suddenly lost count. He only remembered that he threw Rizu down many, many times and fell down many, many times. As for exactly how many times he threw Rizu down, he could only let the dragon tortoise randomly write on the wooden tablet. As Xiao Qiao kept getting beaten up, and his divine sense was exposed to the outside world for a longer and longer time, Rizu's divine sense finally became extremely weak. He didn't even have the strength to curse. This made Xiao Qiao hesitate. He didn't know whether he should continue or not. In the end, Xiao Qiao was a kind person. Saying that he wanted to beat Rizu to death was just something he said out of anger. Xiao Qiao turned his head to look at Yi Fei again. Xiao Qiao, be good. Keep an eye on Rizu's divine sense first. Wait until I take off his clothes first. As if taking the crystal of love wasn't enough, Yi Fei soon discovered that Rizu's clothes were also treasured. Not only were they impenetrable, but they also seemed to be able to resist inner demons. Yi Fei naturally wouldn't let go of such a treasure. He directly took off Rizu's treasured clothes. Then, Yi Fei discovered that Rizu's boots were also treasured boots. They had the power of wind and thunder on them. Without another word, he immediately took off his boots. Then, Yi Fei was completely shocked. Rizu's entire body is really a treasure. Rizu's socks have a total of 6 spirit attachments, and his underwear has a total of 5 spirit attachments. Boom! It would have been better if Yi Fei didn't say this. When he heard that Yi Fei not only took off his dragon skin treasure clothes, but also his boots and socks, even though he was a Rinzu realm expert, Rizu was so angry that his divine sense exploded. He let out an incomparably furious roar. Bastard, demon, I would rather die than be humiliated. Just you wait. When my true body awakens, it will be the time of your death. Rizu's divine sense suddenly exploded at this moment. Then, using this energy, Rizu finally broke through Xiao Qiao's rainbow divine light shackles. Chapter 2169. Yi Fei was very depressed. If he had known that those ghost dragons could escape with Rizu's body, he would have asked Xiao Qiao to imprison those 4 ghost dragons as well. It was useless to regret now. In the void, the 4 ghost dragons had already rushed out with Rizu. Yi Fei didn't know that the outside of the Grotto Heaven world was already filled with people. There was the Lord of Heaven of the Yunshua Nation, the Western Qin Nation, and the Sky River Nation, who were in charge of protecting the princes. There were also the 2 Dao Lords, Old Man Qin Yun and Qin Yang. There were also the Medicine King, Gao Shun, and the Iron Lord of Heaven. Behind these heaven monarchs, there were many young martial artists who were dejected. They were Guo Yun, Gao Jun, Gao Shun, and the other young warriors who had entered the Grotto Heaven world. These people were the most outstanding young people in Qingzhou. Unfortunately, they had all failed the test of the Thunder Ancient Path and had been teleported out. In addition to them, there were 3 frightened women. They were the 3 masked women that Yi Fei had rescued. After Yi Fei left, they had escaped, but were immediately discovered by Dao Lord Qin Yang and imprisoned again. After all, these women were all by Yun Godlord. In order to let Lu Qianzhong obtain Rizu, the tool of the inheritance, they should have been robbed of their bloodlines and died inside, but now they had successfully escaped. This gave Qin Yang a very bad premonition. This time, it's fine if His Highness Qianzhong successfully obtains Rizu's inheritance. If he fails, I will definitely teach that Aunt Yi Fei a lesson. Qin Yang's face was gloomy. After Guiyin came out, he told Yang Chun about Yi Fei's action of saving people. This also made Chun Yang and the Medicine King unable to suppress their killing intent. Gui Tianjun, on the other hand, was deeply worried. However, he secretly sent the news back to Black Rock Peak. Not long after, there was a loud explosion in the Grotto Heaven world. It sounded like a ghost dragon roaring, but also like a powerful existence roaring in anger. The roar directly tore the restriction that Rizu had set up in the Grotto Heaven world. Then, everyone saw in disbelief that a middle-aged man wearing only underwear and socks rushed out of the broken Grotto Heaven world. Rinzu. He has Rinzu's aura. That's Rizu's corpse. Could it be that Rizu mutated? Dao Lord Qinyang came from Zhongzhou. He was the first to discover the terrifying origin of Rinzu in a middle-aged man's body. It's very likely that Rizu didn't die. Of course, it's very likely that he didn't die. Perhaps Rizu didn't even die's origin. It's very likely Rizu didn't die. After all, Rinzu was already at the peak of martial arts. How could such an expert die so easily? But ancestor, why isn't Rizu wearing any clothes? Gao Sickle, who was beside him, suddenly asked a difficult question. As the powerful human ancestor who had once unified the Qing province, regardless of whether the lightning ancestor was really dead or not, just watching the lightning ancestor being carried away by the ghost dragon into the distance was a very strange thing in itself. However, no one dared to stop the escape of the lightning ancestor's corpse. After all, the lightning ancestor was still surrounded by the 4 ghost dragons. They were extremely powerful ghost dragons. However, when they saw Rizu's corpse suddenly shatter the Grotto Heaven world, many people present had an ominous premonition. Since it's very likely that Rizu isn't dead, then will Rizu's inheritance really be in this Grotto Heaven world? Oh no, His Highness might be in danger. Lord Taoist Qinyang was the first to react. He even took the lead to rush towards the hole in the Grotto Heaven world. Old man Qin Yun, the Medicine King, and the Lord of Heaven were not slow at all. After all, no one would easily give up the opportunity to enter Renzu's Grotto Heaven world. Squeak! Within the Grotto Heaven, Xiao Qiao also quickly sensed a large number of experts rapidly approaching. Xiao Qiao did not dare to stay outside. He grabbed the dragon turtle's tail and hurriedly ran towards Yi Fei's side. Yi Fei's expression changed. Originally, he wanted to take the opportunity to kill the unconscious Bai Lung and remove a threat. However, it was obvious that there was no time for that now. The only thing he could do was to return to the bottom of the divine pillar as quickly as possible. As he retrieved Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle, his eyes rolled back and his legs collapsed. He fell to the ground. He was already exhaling more than he was inhaling. He looked like he was about to die. At this moment, a powerful Lord Taoist aura rushed in from the torn Grotto Heaven world and landed directly on the ancient golden coffin. It's Rizu's divine coffin. Could it really be Rizu's corpse that flew out just now? Or perhaps Rizu is not dead at all. Lord Taoist Chun Yang's expression was uncertain. Old man Qin Yun was also puzzled. If Rizu is not dead, why did he run away? Although he was unwilling to admit it, the lightning ancestor's appearance just now really did look like he was fleeing. No one answered old man Qin Yun's question. At this moment, Lord Taoist Qinyang was staring at the figures lying haphazardly in the middle of the 5 dragon bone divine pillars under the ancient coffin. Qinyang was very familiar with one of the figures. It was Lu Qianzhong, but the dead Lu Qianzhong. His Highness Qianzhong is dead. Chun Yang's eyes were spitting fire. He was shocked and furious. He did not dare to imagine how furious Lord Baiyun would be if he brought this news back to the divine land. Who is it? Who killed His Highness Qianzhong? I'm going to exterminate his entire family and destroy him 10,000 times. Boom! A terrifying Lord Taoist's aura fell on the ground like a heavy mountain. Bai Lung and the other 2, who were still unconscious, immediately screamed in pain. Ghost! Ghost! Don't kill me, Rizu. Spare me. We shouldn't have desecrated your heroic spirit. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang were still immersed in the invasion of Ghost Dragon's consciousness. They did not have any impression of what happened later. Bai Lung did not say a word. There seemed to be deep fear in his eyes. Yi Fei also grunted. He was injured by the Lord Taoist's aura and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, no one was paying attention to him at this moment. Everyone was looking at Lu Qianzhong's corpse. The Lord of Heaven of the three countries rushed to the prince they were protecting immediately. Then, their expressions changed drastically. Who is it? How cruel! Not only did he almost destroy His Highness's consciousness, but he also stole 2/3 of his bloodline power. He almost became a cripple. The Lord of Heaven of the three countries was furious. They had reason to be furious. After all, Rizu's methods were too vicious. Yi Fei was secretly relieved. If it weren't for Xiao Qiao, who happened to have obtained the inheritance of the Spirit Immortal tribe, he would have been doomed even if he had the undying sword soul. Subsequently, Yi Fei pretended to be very injured and crawled up weakly. He sat cross-legged and began to regulate his breathing. It was only then that the heaven monarchs of the three great kingdoms realized what was going on. They quickly consumed their own heaven monarch origin and frantically transferred it to Bai Lung and the other two to help them stabilize their injuries. Chapter 2170. Boom! Bai Lung's words shocked everyone present. Lord Taoist Qinyang, who was inspecting Lu Qianzhong's corpse, stood up angrily and glared at Yi Fei fiercely. Did you kill His Highness Qianzhong? Yi Fei shook his head coldly. I didn't kill Lu Qianzhong. What he said was the truth. The one who killed Lu Qianzhong was Rizu. Actually, when Lu Qianzhong had pulled out the human ancestor's weapon, he had basically been possessed by the lightning ancestor. Later, when Yi Fei awakened his bloodline and released the divine tribulation, he only cut off Rizu's control over Lu Qianzhong's body. That was all. Hearing this, Lord Taoist Qinyang became hesitant. He had carefully inspected Lu Qianzhong's injuries just now. The remaining power was extremely terrifying. Even he, a Lord Taoist, felt terrified. At this moment, Guayun suddenly stood up. He scolded coldly. Yi Fei, do you still want to hide it now? If you hadn't gone against His Highness Qianzhong time and time again and prevented him from entering the Inheritance Palace, he wouldn't have died. At the end of the day, even if you didn't kill him personally, you were the one who harmed him. He's dead. Guiyun, you're really stupid. If I hadn't stopped Lu Qianzhong from entering the Inheritance Palace, he would have died even faster. Can't you see that there's no such thing as the Lightning Ancestor's legacy here? This is clearly a trap set up by the Lightning Ancestor. Yi Fei's words were powerful and resonating. He was right. However, this was something that none of the people present could accept. After all, in order to obtain the Lightning Ancestor's inheritance, they had sent all of their most outstanding disciples here. Yet, they had ended up with disastrous casualties and nothing to show for it. This was something that they could not accept. Lord Taoist Qinyang looked at Yi Fei with a murderous gaze. His Highness Qianzhong can't die in vain. Someone must pay for his death. As for you, you dared to oppose His Highness repeatedly in the Lightning Ancestor's tomb. You must die. Boom! The Tao Lord's aura on Qinyang's body was like a blade that cut countless cracks in the space. Lu Qianzhong's death had caused the Tao Lord to vent his anger on Yi Fei. Guiyun and Bai Lung also stared at Yi Fei with sinister smiles on their faces, as if they were waiting for Yi Fei to reveal a look of fear under the threat of death. However, Yi Fei wasn't afraid. In the face of Tao Lord's death threat, he revealed a sarcastic smile. Going against Lu Qianzhong in Rizu's tomb means death. Then Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang, these three princes, none of them can escape. Because here, not only were they going against Lu Qianzhong, but they were also going against him. They even planned to kill Lu Qianzhong when Lu Qianzhong was heavily injured. He kept saying that Lu Qianzhong was His Highness, but when Lu Qianzhong fought with us, he hid behind and watched us fight with Lu Qianzhong. Then according to Tao Monarch's logic, Shouldn't these 3 members of the royal family die? Shouldn't a useless subordinate like Gui Yun be killed? Yi Fei's voice suddenly became louder and louder, sounding like thunder. Gui Yun's face immediately turned pale. Bai Long, who had framed Yi Fei the moment he woke up, also turned pale. Nonsense. A bunch of nonsense. Yi Fei, don't talk nonsense without evidence. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang roared furiously. However, the louder they roared, the more guilty they felt. The Lord of Heaven wasn't a fool. After thinking for a while, he understood that Yi Fei's words were most likely true. They looked at Dao, Lord Qinyang, with fear. The Pill King's face twitched violently. He slapped Gui Yun on the spot, causing half of his face to swell up. Dao Lord, I didn't teach my son well. He's such a coward. Please have mercy on him. The Pill King pleaded with Dao, Lord Qinyang again. After all, the impact of Lu Qianzhong's death was too great. If they didn't clear their names quickly, no one could bear the anger of Dao, Lord Qinyang, and Bai Yun God behind him. The Lord of Heaven of the 3 kingdoms also came to their senses and cupped their hands towards Qinyang. Dao Lord, please understand. The princes of the 3 kingdoms definitely didn't intend to go against His Highness Qianzhong. It's all this kid's fault. Dao Lord, please kill him and avenge His Highness Qianzhong. Qinyang nodded with a gloomy face. Don't worry. I'm a person who knows right from wrong. I know who should be killed and who shouldn't. The 3 princes can't go against His Highness Qianzhong. But if you didn't go against His Highness time and time again, His Highness wouldn't have died in Rizu's tomb. Boom. Endless killing intent formed a hurricane that pressed down on Yi Fei. It tried to force Yi Fei to kneel on the ground and accept Chun Yang's death. Yi Fei's face was filled with anger. He didn't kneel down. Instead, he gritted his teeth and clenched his fists with red eyes. He stood there like a sharp sword that would rather break than bend. An even stronger sneer flashed across his face. What a good way to distinguish right from wrong. You know that the 3 princes are all involved in going against Lu Qianzhong. You know that I'm not the one who killed Lu Qianzhong, but you still want to kill me. Why? Because Lu Qianzhong's death has too many implications. If you don't find out who killed Lu Qianzhong, you won't be able to answer to Bai Yun God. But the 3 princes all have Dao Lords behind them. If you attack them, the Dao Lords behind them will definitely kill you at all costs. The Medicine Lord is also a good friend. So, you can only attack me. Because I don't have any Dao Lord behind me, I'm the best scapegoat. Yi Fei's face was fierce. He analyzed Lord Daoist Qinyang's current state of mind. Hearing this, Lord Daoist Qinyang's killing intent boiled even more. He didn't say anything, but his actions had tacitly agreed with Yi Fei's words. The merciless Dao Lord's aura turned into an even more terrifying pressure that wanted to force Yi Fei to his knees and kill him in an instant. Dao Lord Qinyang's cold voice sounded in his ears. You're right, but so what? Even if you understand this, you'll still die in the end. Who told you to be so weak? You're just an insignificant nobody, an ant that I can kill with a slap. Boom! Lord Daoist Qinyang raised his hand and directly slapped Yi Fei through the air, wanting to kill him on the spot. Yi Fei was calm in the face of this. He only suddenly looked coldly at the Lord Daoist Qinyang, who was hiding in the crowd. That glance also made the Lord Daoist Chun Yang's body tremble. Then, the Lord Daoist Qinyang let out a tragic roar and suddenly charged out. In front of Yi Fei, he also blocked Lord Daoist Qinyang's killing blow. Guisankai, what are you doing? The King of Medicine was incomparably furious. He suspected that the Lord Daoist Qinyang had taken the wrong medicine recently. How dare he jump out to protect Yi Fei at this time? You want to protect him? Very well. Then both of you can die together. Lord Daoist Qinyang was completely enraged. He raised his hand, and an even more terrifying mystic Qi giant palm was about to slap Yi Fei and the Lord Daoist Qinyang to death. The Lord Daoist Qinyang's face was pale. He grabbed Yi Fei's shoulder and was about to fly into the air. Young master, let's escape. Where do you think you're going? Traitor, I'll personally clean up the house today. Hearing the Lord Daoist Qinyang address Yi Fei like a slave, the King of Medicine was suddenly enraged. He led the Lord Daoist Qinyang, wanting to kill the traitor on the spot. Chapter 2171. If it wasn't old man Qin Yun, who else could it be? The king of medicine and his subordinates were bewildered. Lord Taoist Qin Yang seemed to have noticed something. He looked at the sky not far away in surprise and saw a sinister-looking old man in blue walking over step by step. Lord Taoist Qin Yang was very familiar with this old man. Old man Qin Yun couldn't help but be surprised. Soaring snake, you've also become a Tao Lord. If the West Qin royal family hadn't plotted against me, I would have broken through long ago. Why would I wait until now? Tao Lord Meng, she descended from the sky. A powerful Tao Lord aura suddenly erupted from his body, causing the faces of all the heavenly lords present to change drastically. The heavenly lords of the West Qin Empire and Qin Wuyang both had ugly looks on their faces. After all, it was the West Qin imperial clan who had prevented the soaring serpent from breaking through to become a Tao Lord. They knew exactly how vengeful this God King serpent was. Lord Taoist Qin Yang forced a smile and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist soaring snake's breakthrough should be a joyous occasion. Unfortunately, your subordinate has gone too far. He was the one who killed His Highness Qinzhong. Now, I'm going to take his head back to the Divine Land and give the Divine Lord an explanation. Please do me a favor, fellow Taoist soaring snake." As he spoke, Qin Yang continued to walk toward Yi Fei. He believed that soaring snake was a smart person. Liu Qinzhong's death had a great impact, and he had to find a scapegoat. Qin Yang couldn't kill the princes of the three major nations, so he could only kill Yi Fei, the person with the least background, and return to the Divine Land. Complete the task. Hearing this, Soaring Snake's reaction was very strange. He first gave Lord Taoist Qin Yang a strange look, and then looked at Yi Fei. In front of everyone, Soaring Snake suddenly did something that shocked everyone. He knelt down on one knee and faced Yi Fei respectfully. "Please forgive me for being late, young master." These words caused everyone present to widen their eyes in shock. Even Yi Fei looked at Meng, she in surprise. He then nodded his head and said, "Get up." "Yes." Meng Shi stood up respectfully and even purposely took a few steps back to stand behind Yi Fei. Meng Shi used his actions to express his attitude. Interestingly, the position where the Lord of Heaven Guo was standing was exactly the same as the soaring serpent. Everyone from the Medicine King Manor widened their eyes in disbelief. Even the Medicine King felt a strong sense of unease. A Tao Lord. He actually has a Tao Lord standing behind him. Even Guis Sankai secretly joined him. Who the hell is this kid? The King of Medicine's question was actually the same as everyone else's. Lord Taoist Qin Yang's expression instantly turned uglier than a pig's liver. He had originally thought that Yi Fei was the most insignificant person here, so he had planned to use Yi Fei as a scapegoat. Qin Yang had never expected that it wasn't that Yi Fei didn't have a background, but that the background behind him was too powerful. After all, to have a Tao Lord as a follower at the Sovereign Realm, Yi Fei at least had a Tao Lord standing behind him. Yi Fei also stared coldly at Lord Taoist Qin Yang. "Why? Didn't you want to kill me just now and use me as a scapegoat? I'm sorry, but your plan has failed. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." He understood that Soaring Snake's breakthrough must have been part of the Heavenly Tao Tree's plan. After all, to gain a foothold in the Baiyun Nation, which was surrounded by wolves, it was impossible to do so without a Tao Lord. Soaring Snake's breakthrough had coincidentally resolved Yi Fei's greatest crisis. Faced with the Tao Lord aura released by Soaring Snake, Qin Yang hesitated. Before he could figure out Yi Fei's identity and background, he still didn't dare to act rashly against Yi Fei. In the end, everyone watched in astonishment as Yi Fei calmly left under the protection of a Tao Lord. Gao Yin's face turned ashen. Guiyan also looked horrified. They would never have imagined that Yi Fei's true identity would be so terrifying and mysterious. Even a Tao Lord is willing to be his subordinate. Could it be that this Demon Lord Yi is also someone from a major faction in the Divine Prefecture? Investigate immediately. We must find out. Old man Qingyun's expression was very solemn. He was a cautious person. Before he figured out Yi Fei's true identity, he would not let Clear Cloud Pavilion go. They were on either side. Bai Lung, Xiao Yang, and Qin Weiyang's faces were deathly pale. Most of them were injured, while others were angry. Not long after they woke up, they were shocked to find that their spatial belts were gone. It was easy for him to think that Yi Fei had stolen it while they were unconscious. Of course, their guesses were completely wrong. Yi Fei only took Lu Qianzhong's spatial belt and robbed Rizu while he was at it. As for the spatial belts of Bai Lung and the other two, they were not robbed by Yi Fei. Instead, it was the dragon turtle that secretly took them. At this moment, the dragon turtle was in the beast mark space with Xiao Chao. They were each holding a flower of laws and eating happily. Yi Fei was also very depressed. He was worried outside, but the ones who were enjoying the most were Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle. However, when he thought about the situation he might face without Xiao Chao this time, Yi Fei could not help but smile. By the way, Soaring Serpent, Lord of Heaven Gua, thank you so much this time. Yi Fei understood that if it were not for Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Gua, he might really have been killed by Chun Yang as a scapegoat. What are you talking about, young master? We are your servants and should serve you. Young master, please return to the mountain quickly. If Chun Yang and Qing Yun join forces, I will not be a match for them, Soaring Serpent said in a low voice. Yi Fei nodded and simply let Soaring Serpent lead him back to the Black Rock Peak with the speed of a Tao Lord. He saw that the Black Rock Peak was already filled with people. Shang Jing and Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor looked at him nervously. Yi Fei naturally understood their worries and nodded slightly. Then, he instructed Soaring Serpent and Lord of Heaven Gua to guard the peak, while he led everyone back to the Grotto Heaven World. The tree men in the Grotto Heaven World quickly transported Yi Fei out of the palace. Squeak! Only when they reached this place did Xiao Chao happily run out with the dragon tortoise. She also brought the masked woman out. Luoluo, my Luoluo. Shang Jing's eyes immediately turned red. Qing she must be my granddaughter. Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor also became nervous. In fact, they were not the only ones who were nervous. Yi Fei was also very nervous. In his heart, he actually still hoped that this woman was Zhao Yu. Then, he took out the real token and removed the Divine Lord restriction on it. The Divine Lord restriction on the woman was quickly removed. However, she did not take off the black metal mask on her face. Instead, she looked at Yi Fei and asked a very strange question in a hoarse voice. Who do you want me to be? Whoosh! Shang Jing and Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor stared at Yi Fei with bright eyes. Di Fan and the others also looked at Yi Fei with strange expressions. Yi Fei felt immense pressure. However, when he saw the woman's serious gaze, he knew the problem. Chapter 2172. You should be Lu Qing. Yi Fei tried his best to speak in a calm tone. His guess was well-founded. Zhao Yu had a cold personality and would not make such jokes. Shang Luo was also eccentric and would not do such a thing. Therefore, the person who asked him was most likely Lu Qing. Hearing Yi Fei's words, the woman finally took off her mask, revealing a face that everyone was very familiar with. Qing seeing that it was indeed Lu Qing, the Sky Fa Quasi-Emperor could not help but cry. Shang Jing sighed, disappointment written all over her face. At this moment, the Grand Dean walked over to comfort her. Don't worry. Since Yi Fei can find Lu Qing, he will definitely find Shang Luo in the future. That's true, but the Heaven Domain is so big. It's very difficult to find someone. Shang Jing sighed. Looking at Lu Qing, Yi Fei was slightly disappointed. However, after hearing Shang Jing's words, his expression quickly became firm. Chief, don't worry. I will definitely find Shang Luo. As for Zhao Yu and Wang Bai, I will find them all. The Heaven Realm is big, but as long as the Heaven Domain is strong enough, we will definitely be able to do it. Hearing this, Lu Qing looked at Yi Fei with a complicated expression. Suddenly, she said, I might know where Zhao Yu is. What? You know? Yi Fei was a little surprised. Lu Qing nodded and said, After I came to the Heaven Domain, I appeared in the divine prefecture in a small city belonging to the Wind and Cloud Hall. Bai Yun Divine Lord was in charge of that small city. He discovered me, and not only did he help me remove the seal, but he also took me in as his disciple and taught me the fastest way to break through to the sovereign realm. At that time, I met a good person and a good master. Therefore, I asked him to help me find out the whereabouts of Zhao Yu and Shanglong. However, I never expected that Bai Yun Divine Lord was only using me. His main purpose of going to the Divine Prefecture was to find someone like me who had no one to rely on but possessed the lightning bloodline. On the surface, he took us in as his disciples and spent a lot of resources to help us break through to the sovereign realm. He wants to use us as tools for Lu Qianzhong to steal the bloodline power. It was at that time that Bai Yun God Lord discovered my identity as someone from the Earth domain. However, when Bai Yun God Lord imprisoned the 8 of us, he accidentally told me that Zhao Yu was currently in the palace of the deity king. It was a very powerful force that even the Wind Cloud Hall couldn't afford to offend. Lu Qing's tone was very calm, but behind that calmness, there was a sense of stubbornness and bitterness. Her words finally gave Yi Fei a glimmer of hope. After all, he finally knew Zhao Yu's whereabouts. The palace of the Divine King. I will remember this place. No matter where Zhao Yu is, I will definitely find her. If possible, Yi Fei couldn't wait to rush to the palace of the Divine King. When she saw that Yi Fei was so nervous about Zhao Yu, Lu Qing's expression couldn't help but turn gloomy. You must be very disappointed now. You risked your life to save me from Lu Qianzhong, but in the end, I am not Zhao Yu. It turned out that this was the reason why Lu Qing had asked Yi Fei that question. Otherwise, why was it said that a woman's mind was very complicated? At the very least, Yi Fei couldn't help but feel inexplicably awkward when he heard Lu Qing's words. Seeing Yi Fei's awkwardness, Xia Jun, who was Yi Fei's underling, immediately stepped in and said solemnly, "No, Lu Qing, you are wrong. In my big brother's heart, you, Zhao Yu, and Shanglong are all important to him. You are all the most important existences to him. Regardless of which one you are, it is worth it for my big brother to risk his life to find you." Big brother, don't you think so? Upon hearing this, Yi Fei almost vomited blood. He really didn't know whether to nod or not. Lu Qing's face also turned red when she heard this. She subconsciously threw out a bolt of lightning, forgetting that she was now a ruler. Even a light bolt of lightning was enough to strike an earthly venerate like Xia Jun. His hair even turned into an explosive shape. Yi Fei immediately cast a sympathetic look at Xia Jun. This was the consequence of having a big mouth. Fortunately, he didn't say anything. Not only could he not say anything, but Yi Fei also hurriedly found an excuse and walked into the palace. The Heavenly Tao Tree was already waiting inside. "Senior Heavenly Tao Tree, thank you so much this time." Yi Fei cupped his hands and bowed to the Heavenly Tao Tree very seriously. This time, it was Xiao Chao who had chased away Rizu. However, it was the Heavenly Tao Tree that had truly saved his life. If the Heavenly Tao Tree hadn't given him the Heavenly Tao Divine Liquid, he wouldn't have been able to last until he encountered Rizu. He might have died at Lu Qianzhong's hands. Similarly, if the Heavenly Tao Tree hadn't allowed Meng Shi to quickly become a Tao Lord, it would have been very difficult for him to escape under Lord Taoist Qinyang's pursuit. The Heavenly Tao Tree accepted Yi Fei's gratitude calmly and said with relief, "Yi Fei, you don't have to thank me. After all, you're the Spirit Master. All the Treants and I are your subordinates. As long as you protect the little princess and help us take back the spiritual realm, we will naturally pledge our lives to follow you. Senior, don't worry. Anyone who tries to harm Xiao Chao will have to step over my dead body first." Yi Fei's expression was extremely serious. Sensing his seriousness, the Heavenly Tao Tree smiled with relief. "I believe that you will definitely do what you say. By the way, how is Rizu's inheritance?" Yi Fei's expression changed. This was also why he was in a hurry to find the Heavenly Tao Tree. After all, although Xiao Chao had beaten Rizu away, she had also exposed her identity as a spirit immortal. This made Yi Fei very worried. He hurriedly told the heavenly Tao tree everything that had happened in Rizu's tomb. By the way, I also found 2 unique Feng marks on Rizu's body. Yi Fei nodded and activated a memory sorcery to replay the scene of the ancient golden coffin. The heavenly Tao tree's expression couldn't help but become serious. These 2 Feng marks should be the Void Serpent's poisonous fangs, and the venom of the Void Serpent could easily poison a human ancestor realm martial artist to death. Most importantly, this poison can only be cured by the blood of a spirit immortal. Yi Fei, you have to be careful. Since Rizu has discovered the little princess's identity, he will definitely appear again to steal the little princess's spirit blood. Yi Fei's expression darkened. If Rizu comes, I won't have any chance of winning. After all, he was only a ruler at the moment, and Rizu was an invincible expert in the Rinzu realm. That might not be the case. After all, Rizu's consciousness has already been destroyed, and his main body has been poisoned by the Void Serpent. Unless Rizu develops a new consciousness, he won't dare to attack you. The heavenly Tao tree shook its head. But what if Rizu reveals Xiao Chao's existence? Yi Fei was still worried. Chapter 2173. 3 years. And that's a conservative estimate. After all, Rizu managed to survive the Void Serpent's venomous fangs for thousands of years. He must have found a way to suppress it. The heavenly Tao tree's expression became even more serious. In its eyes, Yi Fei's fight with Lu Qianzhong and Lord Daoist Qinyang was just a small skirmish. It was just a small matter. Only the lightning ancestor, a human ancestor, was the real threat. Hearing that Rizu might come for revenge in such a short time, Yi Fei's expression turned even uglier. He suddenly regretted robbing Rizu so thoroughly. One had to know that in the golden coffin, he almost couldn't hold back from stripping off the lightning ancestor's socks and underwear. With such a deep grudge, if the lightning ancestor came to kill him, wouldn't he be slapped to death? Taking a deep breath, Yi Fei forced himself to calm down. He asked in a low voice, "Then how should I deal with Rizu's revenge in 3 years?" Very simple. You just have to break through to Rinzu. The heavenly Tao tree looked at Yi Fei strangely. Yi Fei's face was filled with faint sadness. It would be impressive if an ordinary warrior could break through from early-stage sovereign to late-stage sovereign in 3 years. If a genius martial artist could break through from the sovereign realm to the heavenly monarch realm, it would be amazing. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was about to break through from the sovereign realm to the human ancestor realm. That was a ridiculous cultivation speed. Yi Fei's face turned black instantly. "Senior heavenly Tao tree, you must be joking with me." "We, the heavenly Tao tree, never joke. Of course, I know that it's impossible for you to break through to sovereign in 3 years. But at the very least, you must break through to Lord God. Only then can you control Rinzu's weapon and block Rizu's attack." The heavenly Tao tree's gaze was very serious. After seeing that the heavenly Tao tree was not joking, Yi Fei felt depressed. He took out the Rinzu weapon and said, "I'm good with swords, not sabers. Do I have to cultivate a saber mystique in the next 3 years? We won't have enough time." The heavenly Tao tree suddenly let out a long sigh. "Yi Fei, among all the spirit masters in history, you have the weakest realm, the lowest talent, the most average looks, and the most unlucky one. Other warriors can't even provoke a single Rinzu in their entire lives, but you went out and provoked one, and even offended him directly. Damn it, I really don't understand why the little princess likes to follow you around, Sai." Yi Fei's face was dark. It wasn't his fault that his looks were average. Besides, people who had been abandoned by the heavens were usually very unlucky. This seemed to be something he was born with. Fortunately, even though the heavenly Tao tree was sighing, it quickly thought of a solution to Yi Fei's problem. It roared towards the sky, and a huge response came from the sky. A sun fell directly into the palace. It wasn't a real sun, but a spiritualized heaven and earth cauldron. As it fell, the cauldron turned into a big fat man with a face full of fire and a big belly. Seeing this big fat man, Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He quickly understood the heavenly Tao tree's intentions. Senior Cauldron, take a look at this thunder saber. Can you help me refine it into a thunder sword? This way, he would have a Renzu weapon in the form of a sword. As for the indestructible sword token, strictly speaking, it belonged to the Nine Heavens Swordmaster. Yi Fei couldn't completely control it. Looking at the human ancestor's weapon that Yi Fei handed over, the red-faced fatty's eyes lit up. He took the human ancestor's weapon and swallowed it. Boom! As if sensing danger, endless lightning suddenly erupted from the thunder saber in an attempt to explode the big fat man's belly. However, the big fat man, transformed from the heaven and earth cauldron, immediately used its hands like hammers and smashed its own belly repeatedly. It was as if someone was using a hammer to smash a piece of metal. It was filled with an invisible force. Then, the heaven and earth cauldron extended 3 fingers. 3 years? Yi Fei asked. Although the heaven and earth cauldron had spiritualized, it didn't like to speak. When it saw Yi Fei, it understood what he meant. It immediately grinned, and its huge body soared into the sky. It turned into a sun again and charged into the void. However, Yi Fei could hear the sound of metal being hammered in the void from time to time. Obviously, the heaven and earth cauldron was refining the Renzu weapon with all its might. It was also transforming the thunder saber into a thunder sword suitable for Yi Fei. Now that I have the Renzu weapon, it's time for me to make the best use of my time and cultivate diligently. It was impossible for him to break through to the Renzu realm in 3 years. However, he must reach the divine, sovereign realm. A hint of determination flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. After dealing with Rizu, he walked out of the palace. However, he was surprised to see Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle waiting outside for him. When he saw Yi Fei, Xiao Qiao naturally opened his arms happily and made a gesture of wanting to be hugged and raised high. However, the dragon turtle was afraid that Yi Fei would forget something and hurriedly put up a small wooden tablet. The tablet was densely carved with the numbers recorded by the dragon turtle. Yi Fei finally remembered that he seemed to have promised Xiao Qiao that he would reward him with a certain number of mystic veins if he beat up Rizu several times. Yi Fei instantly picked up the small wooden tablet and looked at it. Then, his face turned green. Big Black, are you sure you didn't count wrongly? I remember that Xiao Qiao didn't hit Rizu many times. How'd he hit him more than 2,000 times in such a short time? Yi Fei was very shocked. Was it because Rizu was too tough, or was it because Xiao Qiao's attack speed was too fast? Yi Fei vaguely felt that something was wrong. However, he saw the dragon turtle looking at him with a pitiful, aggrieved, and hurt expression. Yi Fei was too embarrassed to go back on his word. Forget it. 2,000 it is. I haven't checked Lu Qianzhong's space belt yet. All right, there's still that crystal's love. Yi Fei suddenly remembered the space belt that he robbed from Rizu. That space belt actually had a name. This piqued Yi Fei's interest. Hence, Yi Fei excitedly brought Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle back to his residence and took out the 2 space belts. Lu Qianzhong's space belt didn't need to be mentioned. As the son of a divine lord, and divine lord Bai Yun was the lord of a city, he was naturally very rich. In this space belt, Yi Fei not only found a large number of high-level spiritual weapons and elixirs, but he also found at least 5,000 mystic veins. This level of wealth shocked Yi Fei. After all, the space belts of Bai Lung and the other 2 were looted by the dragon turtle, but they only found slightly more than 1,000 mystic veins. This made Yi Fei even more interested in the crystal's love. The treasure of a divine lord's son is already so precious. Rizu's treasure must be even more precious. Swoosh! Chapter 2174. What's recorded on this golden page is the golden body of laws, the cultivation technique for the Lord of Heaven realm. Yi Fei held the page in shock. The golden body of laws that Du Tian, earthly sovereign, left for him wasn't complete. It was only a cultivation technique that could be cultivated to the sovereign realm. However, this cultivation technique was obtained by Du Tian, earthly sovereign by chance. As for the remaining cultivation technique, Yi Fei had to find it himself. It was just that the heaven realm was incomparably vast, and finding an incomplete cultivation technique was undoubtedly like finding a needle in a haystack. However, he did not expect that the lightning ancestor actually had a law golden body, heavenly monarch realm cultivation technique in his hands. Moreover, this was the complete Lord of Heaven realm cultivation technique. With this cultivation technique, not only could he cultivate stronger nomological abilities, he could also rely on this ability to step into the Lord of Heaven realm. As expected of the path of despair, it can actually completely merge the ability and cultivation technique. I've cultivated the third level of the golden body of laws, which is equivalent to stepping into the Lord of Heaven realm. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with excitement. Soon, he forgot everything and focused on cultivating. Then, he saw Yi Fei start cultivating crazily again. Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle were speechless. Fortunately, Yi Fei left behind a large number of Xian veins. At this moment, the dragon turtle started to use the power of these Xian veins to continue refining the poisonous dragon pearl in its body. After all, that dragon pearl belonged to the sovereign realm poison dragon. If the dragon turtle completely refined it, it could also reach the sovereign realm. Xiao Qiao was very interested in the flowers of law. While Yi Fei and the dragon turtle were cultivating, Xiao Qiao took out the flowers of law and ate them bite by bite as if they were delicious snacks. Xiao Qiao instantly felt very happy. However, it was different from Yi Fei's great harvest. The entire Qingyun Pavilion and the Medicine King Manor were in a gloomy mood. Lu Qianzhong was dead, and Rizu seemed to have come back from the dead and left the Grotto Heaven. No matter which one it was a huge matter. It was also a crisis that the Medicine King and old man Qingyun couldn't bear. At this moment, they gathered together to discuss this matter. What should we do? Baiyun Immortal Emperor will definitely be furious with Lu Qianzhong's death. We can't afford it. Old man Qingyun said worriedly. As the only Dao monarch in the Baiyun nation, Old man Qingyun did not replace him and establish his own nation. Other than the fact that he could not afford to offend Lu Baiyun, a divine monarch, there was another reason, the Wind Cloud Hall. At the same time, the entire Qing province belonged to the Wind Cloud Hall's sphere of influence. As long as the Wind Cloud Hall didn't acknowledge him, Old man Qingyun wouldn't dare to establish his own kingdom in Qing province. Hearing this, the King of Medicine's face turned even uglier. Taoist Lord Chunyang has returned to the Divine Land and brought back the news of Lu Qianzhong's death. Since the news can't be concealed, and we can't find a scapegoat to appease the Divine Lord's anger, then we can only try our best to make the Grotto Heaven world in Yi Fei. We've investigated the matter thoroughly. Old man Qingyun's expression was solemn. We've already investigated Yi Fei's matter. It said that when he first entered the Baiyun nation, he was ambushed by the Blood Sky Wolf. At that time, he said that he came from the Sword Palace. I just don't know what kind of power the Sword Palace belongs to in the Divine Land. The Green Cloud Pavilion was extremely powerful and had been in control of the Baiyun nation for many years. Following Old man Qingyun's orders, a few of the Blood Wolf gang members managed to slip through the net and spread the news that Yi Fei was from the Sword Palace. This made the King of Medicine's expression change drastically. He didn't dare to delay and quickly asked Taoist Lord Chunyang to bring the news of Yi Fei back to the Divine Land before Taoist Lord Chunyang set off. He also wanted to verify the authenticity of Yi Fei's identity as a disciple of the Sword Palace. At this moment, the flag that he had casually raised might have alarmed the real Sword Palace. After painstakingly cultivating in seclusion in his room for a month, Yi Fei finally completely deciphered the mysterious words on the golden page. He also obtained the path of despair and the cultivation method of the Lord of Heaven. Then, Yi Fei sucked in a deep breath of cold air. The third level of the golden body of laws is too terrifying. Just forming the golden body alone requires at least 100,000 Xian veins. Such a terrifying number of Xian veins isn't something that can be provided by a single power. It requires the power of a nation to be able to provide this. In the entire Baiyan nation, only the Medicine Manor and the Qingyun Pavilion can provide this amount of Xian veins. Doesn't that mean that unless I destroy the Medicine Manor or the Qingyun Pavilion, I won't be able to gather enough Xian veins to advance to the Lord of Heaven realm? Of course, Yi Fei could also give up on the path of despair and cultivate other techniques. He could also break through to the Lord of Heaven realm and save a lot of resources. However, after experiencing the power of the path of despair, Yi Fei no longer cared about the ordinary Lord of Heaven techniques. Since I can cultivate the strongest technique in the Sovereign realm, then I will cultivate the strongest technique in the Lord of Heaven realm. Not only that, I must find the other techniques of the path of despair. A hint of determination flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. Then, he continued to look through the treasures in the Crystal of Love, Rizu's collection. In the end, he was shocked when he saw it. Not only was there a golden page in the Crystal of Love, but there was also a huge amount of Xian veins collected by Rizu. There were a total of 50,000 Xian veins. This was already half of the resources needed to break through to the third level of the golden body of laws. Other than the profound veins, Yi Fei also discovered a very strange stone door. On the stone door, there were countless divine runes carved into it. There were at least several hundred of them. Yi Fei was incomparably shocked when he saw them. Several hundred divine runes. What exactly is this stone door? It can actually be enchanted several hundred times. Little grass, do you recognize it? Xiao Qiao glanced at the stone door and found that it was neither beautiful nor shiny. She immediately lost interest in it and continued to eat the flower of law happily. Seeing that Xiao Qiao didn't know what it was, Yi Fei was even more curious. It seems that I can only ask the Heavenly Tao Tree about this. After all, the Heavenly Tao Tree was not only an elder of the spiritual realm, but it also had a long lifespan. The Heavenly Tao Tree definitely knew what Xiao Qiao didn't know. Soon, Yi Fei arrived at the palace where the Heavenly Tao Tree was. At this time, the Heavenly Tao Tree was teaching a group of spiritual beings cultivation techniques. When it saw Yi Fei, it couldn't help but feel a little strange. However, when it saw the stone door that Yi Fei was carrying, the Heavenly Tao Tree was shocked. This is the spiritual immortal door. Yi Fei, where did you get it? From Rizu's space belt. Oh right, is this stone door a treasure of the spiritual immortal clan? Yi Fei asked curiously. The Heavenly Tao Tree shook its head. Yes and no. This stone door was refined by the spiritual immortal clan. It's a special teleportation gate. Once you open this gate, you can directly enter the divine prefecture from Qingzhou, saving you a lot of distance. Moreover, only the major forces of the divine prefecture have such a gate. Strange, this lay. How can Zhu have a teleportation gate that only the major forces have? I remember that the spiritual realm has only refined less than 20 of these gates, and less than 10 have been leaked. The Heavenly Tao Tree fell into deep thought. Chapter 2175. The first thing Yi Fei did when he returned to his room was to take out the stone gate and study it carefully. After the Heavenly Tao Tree's guidance, he already knew that to activate this teleportation gate, besides needing a large number of mystic veins, he also needed to determine the location of the teleportation gate. Otherwise, if he was teleported aimlessly, it would be fine if he was teleported to a safe place. If he was as unlucky as the land and teleported directly to the Tyrannosaurus King's nose, Yi Fei could not guarantee that he would survive. Fortunately, this was not a problem for him. Since Rizu had the stone gate, he had prepared so many mystic veins in preparation for entering the divine prefecture. Inside the stone gate, Yi Fei quickly discovered a star map. On the star map, there were many red dots. Yi Fei knew that these red dots were marked by Rizu in various directions to enter the divine prefecture. These directions were all determined by the stars in the sky. In this way, As long as he opened the gate and communicated with the stars in the sky, these stars would automatically guide him to the location marked on the star map. However, these dots on the star map vary in size and color. Rizu even crossed out some places. It seems that even Rinzu does not dare to approach forbidden areas. If I were to teleport there rashly, I wouldn't even know how I died. Yifei stared at the star map again and again. Although he did not understand why Rizu marked this star map, he still decided to use this gate to enter the Divine Prefecture to take a look. After all, whether it was the Bayou Nation or the Green Prefecture, they were both too small and lacking in resources. Why did the Green Prefecture only have Tao Lords and not Godly Lords? It was because the Green Prefecture had too few resources and it was difficult to produce Godly Lords. Even Rizu had only returned to the Green Prefecture after breaking through to Rinzu in the Divine Prefecture. More importantly, Xiaoyu is currently in the palace of the Divine Prefecture's King of Gods. Understanding this, Yifei felt that he had sufficient reason to enter the Divine Prefecture. In the end, he even thought of a method that wasn't really a method. Since he couldn't determine the meaning of Rizu's star map, he could determine the level of strength of this place by using the number of profound veins consumed to open the realm entrance. For example, if he had to exhaust 10,000 profound veins, he definitely couldn't go. Firstly, it was too dangerous. Secondly, it would exhaust too many profound veins. Even Yifei felt the pinch. It's best if it's the kind that only requires a few hundred profound veins to be able to teleport over. Yifei thought to himself, and then began to try one direction after another. About a day passed like this. Finally, Yifei found a slightly suitable location. The amount of profound veins used to teleport to this location was not too much, not too little. It was exactly 1,000 profound veins. Yifei opened the gate and walked in directly. This time, he did not bring the dragon turtle and Xiao Qiao with him. After all, it was his first time entering the Divine Continent. He was still a little uncertain. Boom! The powerful energy formed by the 1,000 profound veins instantly activated the hundreds of divine patterns on the stone door. These divine patterns arranged themselves to form a strange gate. Yifei stepped into this gate. Yifei had already entered a whole new world. This world was not the divine continent that Yifei had imagined. This was because there was no sun, moon, or stars in the sky above his head. Below his feet was a continuous chain of mountains. The mountains were filled with an austere aura. However, this aura did not seem to belong to the vicious beasts. Instead, it was a very strange power. Yifei was vaguely familiar with this power. Just as he was thinking, a strong wave of profound energy suddenly erupted from the mountain range in the distance. Then, a resplendent wheel of destiny lit up the sky. Yifei clearly saw 12 rings of light on that wheel of destiny. It was actually 12 heavenly wheels of destiny. An ordinary dominator's wheel of destiny could reach the limit of 9 levels. They could become a genius expert in a certain region. However, in the Divine Continent, martial arts flourished even more. Therefore, the geniuses of the Divine Continent could increase their heavenly wheels by 3 levels. This was equivalent to the Dominator realm. It was 1 level higher than an ordinary warrior. It was enough to be invincible in the same realm. When he saw the 12 heavenly wheels of destiny, Yifei's heart skipped a beat. He immediately rushed towards a mountain range. At this moment, there were more than 20 young warriors from the Divine Continent standing in a mountain range. Their auras were very powerful. They were also wearing clothes with special divine patterns. Through these clothes, one could tell which force they were from. When they saw Yifei rushing over, they were a little surprised. How strange. Didn't they say that there would only be a few people from our forces in this trial? Where did that guy come from? Which force does he belong to? The leader was a very stern young man. When he saw Yifei appear, his eyes were like 2 sharp blades that pierced through Yifei's body and into Yifei's soul. He was also the one who had released the 12 heavenly wheels of destiny. At the feet of the stern young man lay a dead vicious beasts. However, those vicious beasts did not have blood. Instead, They exuded a powerful nomological aura. Yi Fei was shocked. Vicious beasts evolve from nomological laws? They are very similar to the Maxim Flower Kings in the Rizu Void. No wonder I found them familiar. He was very excited. One had to know that the Maxim Flower Kings could increase the level of his Wheel of Destiny. These nomological vicious beasts were definitely more precious than the Maxim Flower Kings. Stop right there. I'm asking you a question. I've seen all the forces in the city of divine monarchs, but I don't think I've seen anyone dressed like you. Another woman in embroidered clothes with delicate features looked at Yi Fei with suspicion. Yi Fei became even more excited when he heard this. City of divine monarchs? Then do you know the Palace of Divine Monarchs? We are from the Palace of Divine Monarchs. Who are you? Report your identity. Only the top 10 factions of the Divine Continent can enter Supreme Emperor Heaven. How did you get in? Beside the woman stood 3 men in white robes and purple sashes. They looked at Yi Fei warily. Yi Fei came to his senses. He had been too excited and had aroused the suspicions of these people. Yi Fei immediately revealed an honest and simple smile. It was a very clean and infectious smile. He scratched his head and said, I don't know how I got in either. I found a stone door in my house and opened it. That's how I got in. Yi Fei's words were half true and half false. At the same time, his heart stirred. He took out the black iron heavy sword and rested it on his shoulder. He looked like an inexperienced rookie. By the way, where's this place? How should I address my senior brothers and sisters? You use a sword. Could you be from the Sword Palace? When the woman saw Yi Fei take out his heavy sword, her hostility weakened significantly. She even seemed to be a little friendly. Instead, it was the stern-looking youth who snorted coldly. He did not seem to be interested in the Sword Palace. Chapter 2176. Perhaps she was infected by Yi Fei's honest smile, but the girl quickly let down her guard and hostility. She explained with a smile, since you are from the Sword Palace, you can follow behind me. All right. Thank you, senior sister. The girl was overjoyed when she heard Yi Fei call her senior sister. The more she looked at Yi Fei, the more pleasing she found him. She smiled and said, That's right. Our godly monarch palace and the Sword Palace have always had a good relationship. Since you call me senior sister, I will definitely take good care of you. If you encounter any demonic beasts, stay behind me. The girl was very confident. This might have something to do with the fact that she was from the godly monarch palace. However, when the stern-faced youth heard that the girl wanted to bring Yi Fei along, a look of displeasure flashed across his face. However, he did not say anything. After all, the Sword Palace was one of the major factions in the Divine Prefecture. Naturally, they had the qualifications to enter Supreme Emperor Heaven. While Yi Fei and the girl were talking, the stern-faced youth had already refined and absorbed the demonic beasts that had been killed. As he absorbed the demonic beasts, a strange law suddenly erupted from the youth's body. It was an aura. It's the Azure Wings Law. It focuses on speed. Congratulations, senior brother Yang Ming. The youths clustered around the stern young man, all congratulated him, causing the stern young man to smile. Although the Azure Wing Law is rare, it's a pity that it's not an offensive law. In the Supreme Emperor Heaven, we are the most important. In our Supreme Emperor Heaven, we still need to find the strongest offensive law. Senior brother Yang Ming, don't worry. Supreme Emperor Heaven doesn't have many things, but there are a lot of demonic beasts with laws. As long as we are willing, we will definitely be able to find that berserk demon bear. The youths flattered him again. It was obvious that the stern-faced youth had a very high status among this group of people. The stern-faced youth nodded coldly and continued walking towards the depths of the mountain range. Yi Fei also carried his heavy sword and followed behind the girl. After some conversation, he already knew that the girl's name was Ziyu. She was the daughter of an elder from the godly monarch palace. Her main goal in entering Supreme Emperor Heaven was the same as the stern youth's, to find a suitable law for herself. This shocked Yi Fei greatly. It had to be known that in Azure Province, if a warrior wanted to improve their nomological understanding, They had to enter the nomological world with their own consciousness to comprehend it. It was unknown when they would be able to do so, but this group of geniuses from the divine prefecture was different. It seemed like they only needed to hunt law-fey beasts here to improve their nomological understanding. He could directly obtain the corresponding nomological laws. No wonder the warriors of Qingzhou yearn for the divine land. I didn't expect there to be such a strange place in the divine land. Yi Fei thought to himself. While following Ziyu, he asked curiously, "By the way, senior sister Ziyu, what kind of place is the Supreme Emperor's sky? How did these nomological demonic beasts appear?" "Oh my God, you don't even know this?" Ziyu made an exaggerated expression, but on account of Yi Fei calling her senior sister, Ziyu patiently explained, "Law-fey beasts are demonic beasts condensed from nomological laws. As for the Supreme Emperor Heaven, it's a place where law-fey beasts reside. However, only our 10 great factions can enter such a heaven. This is also the reason why countless geniuses are racking their brains to join our 10 great factions. By the way, you're still a rookie. When you see a law-fey beast, you must not rush over. Although the law-fey beasts of Supreme Emperor Heaven are all at the sovereign realm, the stronger the nomological laws they possess, the stronger the offensive power of the law-fey beast. This is especially true for the berserk demon bear that Yang Ming wants to capture. It has the berserk law of the 10 great forces, and its combat power is even more terrifying." Ziyu explained in detail, completely treating Yi Fei as a rookie. Yi Fei also took the opportunity to ask for advice. He asked about many things that he didn't understand, especially the origin of Supreme Emperor Heaven. It was rare for someone to ask her for advice, so Ziyu was addicted to being a senior sister and actually told him everything she knew. Soon, Yi Fei learned that there weren't only grotto heavens in the divine continent, but also all heavens. If grotto heavens were compared to cities, then all heavens were countries. Moreover, unlike grotto heavens that were naturally formed, all heavens were created by existences above Renzu. These existences were ancient sovereigns. For example, Supreme Emperor Heaven was created by an ancient sovereign realm powerhouse called Emperor Tai. In this all-heavens world, due to the ancient sovereign's laws, countless law-fey beasts had evolved. As long as a cultivator defeated these fey beasts, they would be able to obtain the corresponding laws of the fey beasts. However, all heavens like this were usually firmly controlled by the 10 great factions. Outsiders were simply unable to enter. However, Yi Fei had used the immortal spirit gate left behind by Rizu to teleport in. This made Yi Fei suspect that Rizu also came from one of the 10 great factions. However, if Rizu came from one of the 10 great factions, why didn't he stay in the divine continent? Why did he run to Qing Prefecture and nearly die there? With this in mind, Yi Fei couldn't help but become even more careful. He silently followed behind Purple Moon, not daring to say anything else lest he gave himself away. During this time, Yang Ming and the others in front encountered law-fey beasts a few more times. A few youths took action and killed these law-fey beasts, refining them into their own laws. As the laws were refined, the youth's strength increased to a certain extent. Yi Fei watched with envy. He also wanted to take action, but unfortunately, there were too many people in front of him. As soon as the law-fey beasts appeared, they were reserved in advance, not giving Yi Fei a chance to intervene. "Brother Yi, we have a lot of people on our side. We're all attacking according to the order of arrival. You can take action after we're done. Please bear with us." Beside Purple Moon, a white-robed disciple with a purple sash explained with a smile. However, even though he was explaining, Yi Fei clearly felt that this person was mocking him. This person was clearly bullying him because he was inexperienced. However, Yi Fei didn't refute. He continued to follow behind the group in a very low-key manner. As they went deeper and deeper, the law-fey beasts they encountered became stronger and stronger. Even Purple Moon stopped chatting with Yi Fei. Instead, she observed the surrounding environment very seriously. They continued to move forward for a while. All of a sudden, Yifei sensed an extremely violent aura approaching rapidly. Purple Moon's expression changed as well. Oh no, this violent aura. It might be the wild demon bear. Everyone be careful. Humph, it's just a wild demon bear. It came at the right time. This demon bear is mine. Please wait for a moment. I'll be right back. Sensing the aura of the demon bear, Yang Ming's cold expression became even colder. In an instant, he activated his 12 fate wheels and rushed forward like a burning god of war. Chapter 2177. Boom! While Yi Fei and Ziyu were talking, Yang Ming and the berserk demon bear were fighting in the mountain range ahead. The demon bear's strength was terrifying. It was clearly only a ruler, but the power it erupted with made many of the Lord of Heaven's scalps go numb. Only then did Yi Fei know that although Supreme Emperor Heaven seemed like a paradise, it was actually a dangerous place. If they were careless, the martialists who came in to hunt law demonic beasts might end up being hunted down by the demonic beasts instead. This was exactly the case. Yang Ming, who came from the Yin-Yang Palace, was very powerful. The 12 fate heavenly wheels made the divine ability he used even more dazzling. Unfortunately, whether it was Yang Ming or Ziyu, they had underestimated the power and cunning of this bear of laws. The bear let out a loud roar, and countless powerful beasts of laws rushed out from the surrounding mountains. These demonic beasts exuded a fiendish aura as they charged at the group. Ziyu's face turned pale. So many law demonic beasts. Not good. We've been ambushed. Roar, roar. The berserk demon bear's proud roar came from afar. Just like the people from the top 10 factions who had entered Supreme Emperor Heaven to hunt them down, the law demonic beasts were also constantly looking for opportunities to hunt down the martialists who had entered Supreme Emperor Heaven. This was especially true for law demonic beasts like the berserk demon bear. They didn't just possess instincts, they also had a certain level of intelligence. However, the one leading these demonic beasts to surround them wasn't the berserk demon bear, but another even more terrifying law demonic beast. This demonic beast's form was very strange. It was actually a divine sword with a demonic eye in the middle. Ziyu couldn't help gasping when she saw this demonic beast. It's the 9th-ranked law demonic beast in Supreme Emperor Heaven, the Supreme Evil Sword. The two white-clothed youths beside Ziyu trembled. Yi Fei asked in surprise, "Is the Supreme Evil Sword very powerful?" Powerful, of course it's powerful. The berserk demon bear is only ranked 25th among the law demonic beasts in Supreme Emperor Heaven, but the Supreme Evil Sword is ranked 9th. Not good. The Supreme Evil Sword is coming for us. Clang! Between heaven and earth, a sonorous sword cry suddenly resounded. Then, endless sword chi whistled like a long river, cutting the mountain peak in half, and charged towards Ziyu. Yi Fei could vaguely see a hint of mockery and indifference in the evil eye of the evil sovereign sword. It seemed to be mocking these puny humans for daring to covet their law beasts. This wasn't a hunt at all, but a crushing. The swarm of law fey charging from all directions proved this point. Although those who could enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven were definitely outstanding figures among the top 10 forces, it was a pity that they were facing extremely powerful demonic beasts of laws. Demonic beasts that could survive in the depths of the Supreme Emperor Heaven were definitely unrivaled existences in the sovereign realm. Faced with the sudden attack of dozens of demonic beasts, not only did Yang Ming of the Yin-Yang Palace turn pale, but the other young warriors were also flustered. "Oh no, we've been ambushed. Young Master Yang Ming, Miss Yue, what should we do?" There were already people who couldn't withstand the attacks of the demonic beasts. Ziyue's face paled, but then she said resolutely, "Retreat immediately. We'll split up and break out of the encirclement." If they stayed together, they would only be completely surrounded. If they split up and fled, they would be able to pull apart the formation of the demonic beasts. However, this way, there would be bound to be weak people who wouldn't be able to get support from others and would die. Yi Fei shook his head. "Ziyue, is this really okay? If we split up, many people will die here." We can't care so much. Yangming will definitely be able to break out. As for the others, they can only pray for their own good luck. The two white-clothed youths glanced at Yi Fei with pity. Clearly, when they said pray for their own good luck, they also included Yi Fei. As they spoke, they turned and ran. However, Ziyu was a little hesitant. She hurriedly said, "You can follow us." It's too late. The evil sovereign sword is already rushing towards you. Boom! Just as Yi Fei finished speaking, a terrifying evil sword light slashed down like a river of stars. Even though Ziyu and the two white-clothed youths tried their best to block it, it was a pity that they were too weak against the evil sovereign sword, which was ranked 9th in the supreme emperor heaven. The terrifying sword light swept across, and the two white-clothed youths screamed miserably as they were sent flying. Their chests were slashed with bloody sword scars. Even though Ziyu had mustered up her courage and used her strongest ability, the evil sovereign sword's heavy body still shattered her ability and directly tore her body apart. Ziyu's face instantly turned pale. It was as if she had never dreamed that she would die in the supreme emperor heaven. Then, she saw a tall figure blocking in front of her. He used a heavy sword and clashed with the evil sovereign sword. Boom! The collision of swords was always the most terrifying and violent collision. Yi Fei brandished his heavy sword. His terrifying divine power was like a heavy mountain as he smashed the evil sovereign sword back. At the same time, Yi Fei's body was pushed back a few steps by the evil sovereign sword, leaving deep footprints on the ground. However, before Yi Fei could stabilize his body, he suddenly felt a soft touch on his back. It was as if there was a ball of cotton pressing against him. Ziyu finally woke up from the shock of Yi Fei's attack. She had been too shocked, and her body had collided with Yi Fei's back. She couldn't help but blush as she quickly retreated. Only now did Yi Fei realize how inconvenient it was to not have Xiao Qiao by his side. He had accidentally collided with Ziyu. Roar! His sword, which he was confident in, had been pushed back by a puny human with a heavy sword. The evil sovereign sword's evil eye suddenly flashed with shocking anger and boiling, killing intent. Without a sound, an even more terrifying sword gleam tore towards Yi Fei. That sword gleam was incomparably terrifying. However, Yi Fei seemed to see an evil eye staring at him unblinkingly, as if it wanted to see through all his flaws and see through all his illusions. Ziyu didn't have time to pursue Yi Fei's offense. She hurriedly retreated and said, "Yi Fei, hurry up and retreat. We are not a match for the evil sovereign sword with just our numbers. Kill." What answered her was Yi Fei's surging sword gleam and invincible battle intent. If he had faced other nomological demonic beasts, he might have retreated. However, it was different this time. He was facing the evil sovereign sword, a unique demonic beast that represented the nomological laws of the sword. As a swordsman, Yi Fei didn't have the second-level nomological laws of the sword. Although he didn't say anything, he was actually disappointed. At this moment, the appearance of the evil sovereign sword had finally made Yi Fei's disappointed spirit completely excited. Chapter 2178. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with determination as he swung his heavy sword at the evil emperor's sword with an even greater force. His actions had undoubtedly enraged the evil emperor's sword. For a demonic beast that was ranked 9th in the supreme emperor heaven, it didn't just possess strength. It was so simple, and it also had an extremely powerful consciousness. Boom! The evil emperor's sword cry was even more terrifying. Following the sword cry, it was as if a divine sword had appeared between heaven and earth as it slashed at Yi Fei. Yi Fei raised his sword and slashed forward. He felt as if he wasn't slashing at the evil emperor's sword, but the heaven and earth itself. At the same time, a terrifying suction force was emitted from the evil emperor's sword. In the middle of the huge divine sword, a terrifying evil eye suddenly appeared, staring at Yi Fei with incomparable evil charm. Looking at this evil eye, Yi Fei felt that his entire consciousness, his entire soul, was about to be sucked into that strange eye vortex. Ziyue couldn't help but shout anxiously, "Be careful. That's the evil Emperor's sword's evil sword eye. Don't look at that eye." It's too late. He doesn't even know what the evil Emperor's sword is, and he dares to charge at it. He's clearly courting death. "Miss Ziyue, let's take this opportunity to escape while he's distracted by the evil Emperor's sword." At this moment, the two injured men in white rushed over. From her point of view, Yifei didn't know how to escape when facing the evil Emperor's sword. Instead, he dared to charge at Yifei. He was basically a dead man. However, it was fine if Yifei died, but nothing could happen to Ziyue. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to answer to Elder Z of the Divine King Palace. They immediately pulled Ziyue away. Ziyue's footsteps subconsciously followed them. Clearly, Ziyue didn't think highly of Yifei's battle with the evil Emperor's sword. However, Yifei had just saved her. Seeing that Yifei's soul was about to be sucked away by the evil Emperor's sword, Ziyue was still a little hesitant. She didn't know whether it was right or wrong to leave now. "Golden body of laws, open," Yifei roared. This evil Emperor's sword was definitely the strongest opponent he had ever faced in the Sovereign Realm. Yifei even felt like he was facing the Lord of Heaven. However, he still did not back down. The black iron heavy sword in Yifei's hand became even heavier. At the same time, a violent purple-gold flame burned on his body like a torch, trying to block the evil eye attack of the evil Emperor's sword. Clang! Another beam of sword light cut through the stars. Disdain and coldness flashed across the evil eyes of the evil Emperor's sword. Many people had tried to take advantage of him in the past, but in the end, those insignificant people had all died. And this human before would be the same. The golden body of laws could not withstand the gaze of the evil eye. Yifei soon felt his consciousness and soul leaving his body bit by bit, as if they were about to enter the evil eye. At this moment, the evil Emperor's sword seemed to have felt the strength of Yifei's consciousness and soul. The huge body of the evil Emperor's sword trembled in excitement. It could feel that as long as it absorbed Yifei's consciousness and soul, it might be able to break free from the golden body of laws and transform into a true demonic beast. Then, it would be able to leave this world that imprisoned them. These emotions were clearly transmitted to Yifei's heart through the evil eye. Yifei's expression became extremely serious. He knew that he had to use his trump card. Under the circumstances where the golden body of laws was ineffective, he could only use the undying sword soul. I don't know if the undying sword soul can suppress this terrifying evil eye. Undying sword soul absorb. Yifei roared in his heart. The undying sword soul in his body awakened once again. With Yifei as the center, it formed a huge vortex that resisted the evil Emperor's sword's evil eye. The evil Emperor's sword immediately sensed an extremely dangerous aura from Yifei's body. The evil Emperor's sword actually soared into the sky and decisively gave up on devouring Yifei's consciousness and soul. Yifei's eyes lit up when he saw this. He knew that he had made the right bet. Although the evil Emperor's sword was very powerful, it was not a true demonic beast. Like the Maxim Flower Kings, it was only a manifestation of the laws that had gained sentience. Yifei had the experience of suppressing the Maxim Flower Kings. Now, he naturally had the upper hand against these nomological demonic beasts. Boom! The purplish-gold light on his body became even more dazzling, as if a purplish-gold star was burning. At the same time, a mysterious black divine sword appeared in Yifei's hand under the cover of the purplish-gold light. This divine sword was the Undying Sword Token. Even though he could not fully control this Renzu weapon, as long as he activated the Undying Sword Soul within it, the Undying Sword Token would still be able to unleash a terrifying power. Amidst the purplish-gold light that filled the sky, Yifei raised his sword again, forming a black, undying sword radiance. Suddenly, his sword pierced through the evil Emperor's sword's most terrifying evil eye. Roar! The evil Emperor's sword immediately let out a terrifying roar. Endless negative energy was released from the evil eye, as if it wanted to swallow Yifei whole. However, The energy released by the evil eye was strong, but the energy absorbed by the undying sword soul was even stronger. Sensing the law energy released by the evil emperor's sword, the undying sword soul released a formless suction force. Not only did it absorb all the negative energy released by the evil eye, it even pierced the evil emperor's sword. With a loud bang, the evil emperor's sword exploded. The evil emperor's sword, which had lost its body, quickly turned from a heavy sword into a sword law that emitted a demonic aura. Yifei hurriedly withdrew his undying sword soul. Amidst the purplish gold light that filled the sky, he grabbed this powerful sword law in his hand. The two white-robed men who were still holding on to Ziyu and trying their best to persuade her to abandon Yifei and escape were extremely shocked. Ziyu's eyes were wide open and her mouth was agape. She did not expect that the rookie from the Sword Palace who followed behind her and called her senior sister would be such a powerful man. Suddenly, Ziyu's face flushed red. She thought of the scene when she had collided with Yifei. She did not think much of it, but now that she thought about it, the way Yifei had stood in front of her without a care for his own safety was actually quite handsome. Could it be that he likes me too? Ziyu said subconsciously. Her words caused the faces of the two white-robed men behind her to turn the color of pig liver. What made them even more depressed was that after Yifei had defeated the evil Emperor's sword, the nomological demonic beasts that had been under the evil Emperor's sword's control had suddenly fled as if they had been greatly agitated. What's going on? The evil Emperor's sword was actually defeated. The other nomological demonic beasts have also fled. Quick, look! The berserk demon bear, that rumor has it that it will never stop fighting, has also fled. Chapter 2179. Who didn't know that Yang Ming's main goal in entering Supreme Emperor Heaven was to capture the berserk demon bear and obtain the law of berserk to cultivate one of the Yin-Yang Palace's powerful divine arts? In the end, due to Yi Fei's sudden killing of the evil Emperor's sword, the berserk demon bear had fled in fright. The berserk demon bear might be big, but once it went berserk, its speed would increase exponentially. Even Yang Ming, who had obtained the Green Wings Law, could not catch up to it. How could Yang Ming not be angry? Ziyu also curiously rushed to Yifei's side. Seeing that Yifei was unharmed, she could not help but be even more shocked. Yifei, how did you do it? She could sense that Yifei's realm was not as high as hers. He had probably just comprehended 4 laws and reached the peak of the early-stage ruler realm. How could such strength defeat the 9th-ranked evil Emperor sword so easily? There were also those law demonic beasts that had fled in fright. This made Ziyu feel that Yifei was even more mysterious. Regarding this, Yifei felt very helpless. It was said that demonic beasts had the sharpest senses, and law demonic beasts were even more so. Although he had used the light of his golden body of laws to conceal the undying sword soul, he could hide it from Ziyu and the others. However, he could not hide it from those law demonic beasts. Needless to say, the berserk demon bear must have been frightened by the undying sword soul's aura. However, Yifei could not say this out loud. He could only reveal a simple and honest smile again. Actually, I realized that the evil Emperor sword's strongest evil eye is its greatest weakness. As long as I destroy that evil eye, the evil Emperor sword will naturally be defeated. Yifei's reason seemed very sufficient. The simple smile of an honest person was also very infectious. At the very least, Ziyu, who had never defeated the evil Emperor sword, subconsciously believed Yifei's words. Since Ziyu believed him, the others naturally had nothing to say. Although the 9th-ranked evil Emperor sword was very eye-catching, Yifei was still from the Sword Palace. Even if some people had thoughts about it, they did not dare to openly express it. Only Yang Ming's cold expression suddenly flashed with a hint of mockery when he heard Yifei's words. Clap, clap, clap. He actually started clapping for the first time. None of us here have defeated the evil Emperor sword before, so naturally, no one can point out your flaws. It's a pity that you can fool others, but you can't fool me. Yang Ming, what do you mean? Ziyu was very puzzled. I know that Yin Yang Palace and Sword Palace have a grudge, but you don't have to target Yi Fei like this. If Yi Fei hadn't defeated the evil Emperor's sword, there would have been casualties among us. Yang Ming nodded and then shook his head. His cold expression suddenly flashed with a hint of evil charm. So, we should be thanking him. Thanking this fake Sword Palace person? Boom! Yang Ming's words shocked everyone present. Purple Moon looked at Yi Fei in shock. Fake? You're not from Sword Palace. Strange. If you're not from Sword Palace, then how did you enter Supreme Emperor Heaven? Or is Yang Ming purposely targeting you? Ziyue was completely confused, and so were the others. However, they believed that Yang Ming would definitely give a reasonable explanation. Compared to the unfamiliar Yi Fei, they trusted Yang Ming more. Yi Fei's heart thumped. He did not understand where he had exposed himself, but on the surface, he remained calm and said in a deep voice, "You said that I'm not from Sword Palace. Do you have proof?" Yang Ming stared coldly at Yi Fei and sneered. "Your disguise has always been very successful, especially that heavy sword of yours. Even I almost thought that you were from Sword Palace, but unfortunately, you shouldn't have used your golden body of laws when you were fighting the evil Emperor's sword. Do you know that the golden body of laws was once a sacred art of the heavenly palace of despair? You used such a sacred art, yet you claim to be from Sword Palace. Don't you think that's ridiculous?" Yi Fei calmly shook his head. "That's not necessarily true. Perhaps I obtained the sacred art of the heavenly palace of despair by chance. Can't I cultivate it myself?" "Cultivate it yourself?" Yang Ming's smile became even colder. "I forgot to tell you. Back then, the heavenly palace of despair was destroyed by our Yin Yang Palace under orders. All the martial arts of the heavenly palace of despair were destroyed. Where did you go to learn them yourself?" Boom! As he spoke, a powerful aura suddenly appeared behind Yang Ming, wanting to completely envelop Yi Fei. Yi Fei cursed inwardly. Only now did he realize that he had given himself away. So the Tao of Despair came from the heavenly palace of despair, and the heavenly palace of despair was destroyed by the Yin Yang Palace. He used the martial arts of the heavenly palace of despair and claimed to be a disciple of Sword Palace. Wasn't that a confession? Of course, he could also take out the Undying Sword token to prove his innocence. But if he did that, not only would he expose his greatest secret, but he would also alarm the Sword Palace, who would come and take away the sword token. Yi Fei immediately felt depressed. Ziyu still didn't believe him. If he isn't from Sword Palace, then how did he enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven that only we can enter? It's very simple. The Heavenly Palace of Despair was one of the top 10 factions, but it was destroyed later on. The Sword Palace then overtook it. If he really is a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair, then he can naturally enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven by keeping a celestial essence door. The ones who answered were a few youths beside Yang Ming. Their eyes were greedily staring at the light of laws in Yi Fei's hand. In the Supreme Emperor Heaven, the top 10 nomological demonic beasts all had special abilities. Their value was also much higher than ordinary nomological demonic beasts. If Yi Fei was from Sword Palace, then they wouldn't have dared to make a move on him, even if they were envious. Unfortunately, Yi Fei was a fake. Even if he had entered the Supreme Emperor Heaven, he had snuck in. Their greed was instantly aroused. When he felt their gazes, Yi Fei's expression suddenly turned cold. After saying so much, "Aren't you all still here for the evil Emperor's sword in my hand?" So what if we are? The Supreme Emperor Heaven is the territory of the top 10 factions. Who do you think you're to sneak in and fish in troubled waters? If you hand over the evil Emperor's sword now, we can still let you off this time. Another few youths stepped forward and stared fervently at the evil Emperor's sword in Yi Fei's hand. Just a moment ago, these youths had been besieged by nomological demonic beasts and had been in a perilous situation. If Yi Fei hadn't defeated the evil Emperor's sword and scared off the other demonic beasts, some of them might have perished. However, they had turned hostile and wanted to snatch the treasure. Yi Fei couldn't help but sigh and raise his hand. "You all want the evil Emperor's sword, right? All right, I'll give it to you." He opened his hand, but no light flew out. Instead, the evil emperor's sword in his hand was instantly refined into nomological laws and poured into Yi Fei's body. This action was like a slap to the face. The youth's faces turned red as they flew into a rage. Impudent! How dare you refine the evil emperor's sword? Quick, kill him. Take advantage of the fact that he hasn't integrated the nomological laws into his fate wheel and refined them out of his corpse. Chapter 2180. Yi Fei's act of publicly refining the evil emperor's sword had finally infuriated the youths of the 10 great powers. Apart from a few youths who were still hesitating, the rest of them were enraged and surrounded Yi Fei. The 2 men in white robes and purple belts from the deity King Palace were gloating. They had seen how close Yi Fei had been to Ziyu and were furious. However, they couldn't show their anger because Yi Fei was from the Sword Palace. When they realized that Yi Fei was an imposter, they bared their fangs and charged forward without hesitation. They seemed to have forgotten that it was Yi Fei who had defeated the evil emperor's sword and saved their lives. Ziyu's expression became even more complicated. She didn't know whether she should help Yi Fei or attack Yi Fei like the others to snatch the precious evil emperor's sword. Although Ziyu was hesitating, Yang Ming from the Yinyang Palace didn't show any mercy. After all, the heavenly palace of despair had been destroyed by the Yinyang Palace. When he realized that Yi Fei was a remnant of the heavenly palace of despair, Yang Ming's killing intent surged. Kill. Yinyang Sky Flipping Palm. Yang Ming used the Yinyang Palace's powerful mystique. This mystique was the Lord of Heaven's mystique. Yang Ming was able to use the Lord of Heaven's mystique despite being in the sovereign realm. This showed how terrifying his talent was. Yi Fei's expression turned solemn. He was confident that he could take on Yang Ming alone. However, if he had to face more than 10 geniuses from the Divine Continent, he would have to bear a grudge no matter how strong he was. Boom! Backslash, Yi Fei swung the black iron heavy sword in his hand like the wind. It was like a terrifying black iron heavy mountain. As it blocked the yin-yang, sky-flipping palm, he had already turned around and retreated. He rushed towards the distance, wanting to jump out of the encirclement. However, it was a pity that those who could enter the supreme Emperor Heaven were the elites of the 10 great powers. There were a few youths who used their fastest speed to seal off Yi Fei's path of retreat. They even wanted to take advantage of the fact that Yi Fei and Yang Ming were unable to split up to launch a sneak attack. Bam! 2 dazzling divine abilities landed on Yi Fei's back. Unexpectedly, Yi Fei didn't try to block them. Instead, he allowed them to land on him. At the same time, his golden body of laws emitted a blazing purple gold light. Not only did it neutralize the 2 divine abilities, but it also neutralized them. It also neutralized his injuries. What was even more unexpected was that Yi Fei took advantage of the rebounding force from the 2 mystiques to accelerate and rush in another direction. That direction happened to be where the 2 white-clothed men from the Divine King Palace were coming from. The 2 of them were instantly enraged. Yi Fei didn't escape from other directions, but chose to escape from them. He clearly thought that they were the weakest here. How could they tolerate such contempt? Get out of the way. Suddenly, Ziyu's cold voice came from behind them. The 2 white-clothed men were stunned. Young Lady Z, this person isn't from the 10 great powers, but he sneaked into the supreme Emperor's sky. Get lost. I won't repeat my words a second time. Anger surfaced on Ziyu's face. After struggling for a while, she decided to let Yi Fei go. It could be considered as repaying Yi Fei for saving her. The 2 white-clothed men didn't dare to disobey Ziyu's orders. Their expressions were incomparably ugly as they dodged to the side, allowing Yi Fei to rush past them. Yi Fei was slightly taken aback. Then, he nodded in Ziyu's direction and quickly rushed deeper into the mountain range. Originally, he wanted to ask Ziyu about Zhao Yu, but now it seemed like he didn't have the chance. He didn't have the chance. The moment Ziyu opened the gap, Yang Ming, the genius of Yinyang Palace, roared furiously from behind him. Catch him, but you must capture him alive. He must have a treasure that can restrain nomological demonic beasts. Yang Ming's eyesight is really sharp. I was already very careful and used my golden body of laws to conceal the indestructible sword token, but he still found out. Yi Fei was very depressed. After this incident, he felt that he had to be even more careful when using the indestructible sword soul in the future. There were countless mountain ranges in Supreme Emperor Heaven and countless nomological demonic beasts. Yi Fei didn't try to break out. After all, the demonic beasts outside were weak and couldn't stop Yang Ming and the others. Therefore, all he could do was continue to rush deeper into Supreme Emperor Heaven. The deeper he went, the stronger the nomological demonic beasts were. Not only was there the 9th-ranked evil Emperor Sword, but there were also terrifying nomological demonic beasts that were ranked even higher. Soon, after Yi Fei had rushed out for some distance, a huge earth giant stood on top of a barren mountain in front of him. It roared at Yi Fei and Yang Ming, who were chasing after him. Not good. That's the 8th-ranked heavy earth giant. It's even more terrifying than the evil Emperor's sword. When they saw the earth giant, some people turned pale and didn't dare to continue approaching. Only Yang Ming refused to give up. He clenched his teeth and continued to chase after Yi Fei. Everyone, don't be afraid. Even if we encounter the heavy earth giant, he will definitely be the first to be attacked. The closer he gets, the faster he will die. Yang Ming had a special ability called the Yin Yang Eye. While others hadn't been able to see Yi Fei killing the evil Emperor's sword, Yang Ming had seen it clearly. Yi Fei had used a very strange black sword. It was also that black sword that had defeated the evil Emperor's sword and scared off the other demonic beasts. When he thought about the black sword's great restraint against nomological demonic beasts, Yang Ming's heart burned with passion. He couldn't wait to snatch the black sword away. At this moment, how could he let Yi Fei off so easily? Not only would he not let Yi Fei off, but a wisp of a cold light flashed through his eyes. Suddenly, he raised his hand and blasted out the Yin Yang sky-flipping seal again. However, it wasn't aimed at Yi Fei, but at the heavy earth giant. Yi Fei, keep running if you have the guts. As long as my attack hits the heavy earth giant, it will immediately go berserk and attack you first, since you're the closest to it. Yang Ming wanted to use this method to force Yi Fei back. After all, facing the 8th-ranked heavy earth giant at close range, and one that was famous for its defense, even Yang Ming felt great pressure. Yi Fei's expression turned ugly when he sensed Yang Ming's actions. How could he not know that Yang Ming wanted to enrage the heavy earth giant and block his path? Unfortunately, you can't block my path. Since you're so aggressive, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yi Fei didn't retreat, but he didn't advance either. Instead, he took out the immortal spirit gate and opened the realm gate once more. Just like that, under Violet Moon's astonished gaze, Yang Ming's furious roar, and the heavy earth giant's thunderous roar, Yi Fei was attacked. Chapter 2181. Following Yi Fei's disappearance, the heavy earth giant was thoroughly enraged. These greedy youths, who tried to kill Yi Fei for his treasures, soon encountered the most terrifying scene of their lives. The sky was filled with flying mountains in the face of the heavy earth giant's ridiculous strength and defenses. Even lifting a mountain was child's play for the giant. Many of them were crushed to death on the spot. Yang Ming, who bore the brunt of the attack, was smashed to the point of vomiting blood. He had no choice but to use the yin-yang escape art to barely escape the heavy earth giant's attack range. Many of them looked extremely miserable. Nearly 20 of them had chased after Yi Fei, but in the end, not only had they failed to capture Yi Fei, 7 of them had been smashed into meat patties by the enraged heavy earth giant. This was an extremely disastrous loss. The 2 white-robed men, who had been berated by Ziyue for not chasing after Yi Fei, rejoiced and hurriedly thanked Ziyue. Miss Ziyue, thank you for stopping us in time. You should be thanking Yi Fei, not me. If he hadn't given us face, do you think you would have survived just because I stopped you? At the end of the day, You are all too greedy. However, this Yifei is really strange. I originally thought that he had simply passed through the Immortal Essence door. After entering this place, I didn't expect that he actually possessed the Immortal Essence door. He even caused Yang Ming to suffer a great loss. How interesting. Unfortunately, he isn't from the 10 great factions. Even if he secretly likes me, it's not very possible for us to be together. Ziyue still felt very regretful when she said this. She even subconsciously assumed that Yifei had spared the 2 white-robed men because Yifei had a good impression of her. After all, Ziyue was beautiful to begin with and had many suitors around her. Yifei had no idea that his actions had been misunderstood so deeply by Ziyue. After all, he had spared the 2 white-robed men because he didn't want to clash with the Divine King Palace. This would prevent him from contacting Zhao Yu in the future. In the end, Ziyue had misunderstood him so deeply. If he had known earlier, Yifei would have rushed back to explain everything without hesitation. Unfortunately, Yifei was unaware of Ziyu's misunderstanding. Yifei's body entered the space gate. Soon, he was back in Qingzhou from Divine Land, inside the Grotto Heaven. However, only 10 days had passed. In other words, he could make a round trip from Azure Prefecture to the Divine Prefecture in 10 days. As for ordinary martial artists, even if they were sovereigns, they would still need to fly for 10 years to get from Azure Prefecture to the Divine Prefecture. Even if they took a specialized airship, it would still take around a year. From this, it could be seen how powerful the Celestial Gate was. No wonder Rizu is so nervous about the Crystal Love. It's just that this round trip costs 2,000 profound veins. This consumption is a little too high. Yifei suddenly felt a little pain in his heart. If he did not obtain the Evil Emperor's sword this time, he would have suffered a huge loss from going back and forth. Looks like I'll have to bring Xiao Qiao and the Dragon Turtle the next time I go to Shenzhou. Since he was sure that the teleportation of the Celestial Gate was not a threat, Yifei felt that it would be safer to bring Xiao Qiao and the Dragon Turtle with him. Then, Yifei remembered that he had yet to completely refine the Evil Emperor's sword in his body. He immediately returned to his room and entered seclusion to refine the power of the Evil Emperor's sword. As he refined the Evil Emperor's sword, Yifei was shocked to discover that the power of the Evil Emperor's sword was equivalent to the power of 4 other types of second-level laws. So that's how it is. Even second-level laws have differences in strength. Perhaps this difference is based on the strength of the demonic beasts of the laws in Supreme Emperor Heaven. For example, the Evil Emperor sword that I obtained is ranked 9th in Supreme Emperor Heaven. Then, the power of the laws that I obtained should be ranked 9th among all the second-level laws. At that level, however, to be able to gather all the second-level laws in the world to establish Supreme Emperor Heaven and create demonic beasts of laws, the power of the Ancient Emperor must have reached an unimaginable level. Of course, Yifei's benefits were not limited to that. When he completely refined the Evil Emperor sword, he obtained a second-level law called the Evil Sword. Because the Evil Sword law was equivalent to the power of 4 other types of second-level laws, Yifei's realm suddenly rose from the early stage of the Sovereign Realm. He had reached the great circle of the mid-stage Sovereign Realm. Just the 9th-ranked Evil Sword law alone allowed me to reach the mid-stage Sovereign Realm. If I can refine the 8th-ranked or even 1st-ranked demonic beast of laws, won't I be able to reach the limits of the Sovereign Realm very quickly and break through to the level of the Lord of Heaven? When Yifei thought of this, he suddenly became very excited and had the urge to immediately return to Supreme Emperor Heaven. However, when he thought of the possibility that Yang Ming's group was still waiting for him inside, Yifei suppressed his feelings and decided to look for the Heavenly Dao Tree first. Inside the palace, the Heavenly Dao Tree had transformed into a huge divine tree that supported the entire Grotto Heaven. The Dragon Turtle was playing around the Heavenly Dao Tree. Of course, it was just playing around because it had eaten too much and was lying under the Heavenly Dao Tree to bask in the sun. After not seeing it for 10 days, Yifei was shocked to discover that the Dragon Turtle had grown 3 times fatter. It used to eat like a ball, but now it had completely turned into a pig. Yifei almost didn't recognize it as the dragon turtle. Seeing that Yifei had finally appeared, the heavenly Tao tree immediately complained, "Yifei, your tortoise is too difficult to raise." Other ferocious beasts would be full after eating 1 meal a day. 2 meals would be considered a blessing, but this tortoise actually wants to eat 6 meals a day. Not only does it have to eat 100 mystic veins, but it also has to eat pills and spirit fruits for dessert. Even these flowers of law required me to refine them into pills in advance. I even had to attach myself to it thrice before it was willing to eat them. The more the heavenly Tao tree spoke, the angrier it became. For the past 10 days, the dragon turtle had been lying under the tree like a big boss. The heavenly Tao tree was too busy just for finding pills for the dragon turtle. It was no wonder that the dragon turtle had become as fat as a pig in just 10 days. Yifei's face instantly darkened. Sensing Yifei's unfriendly expression, the dragon turtle tried its best to flip its body over, but it was helpless because it had eaten too much. In the end, the dragon turtle could only look at Yifei with its limbs in the air. It even raised a small wooden sign and told Yifei very seriously that it was still a little turtle. This cub was at a crucial point in its growth, so it ate a little too much. Yifei wanted to slaughter the black turtle and stew it. He didn't even look at the dragon turtle and asked the heavenly Tao tree, "Where's Xiao Qiao? Didn't I ask Xiao Qiao to watch over the dragon turtle and supervise its diet? What? Lose weight? 6 meals a day?" The heavenly Tao tree faintly felt that something was wrong. Yifei was so angry that he almost vomited blood. This turtle is so fat. It won't starve to death even if it eats 1 meal for 6 months. After saying that, Yifei turned around and left. At this moment, Yifei had already sensed where Xiao Qiao was. It turned out that Ling Siki had actually come up from the land. The two little girls had reunited after a long time and actually played crazily together for 10 days. As a result, Xiao Qiao had neglected her supervision of the dragon turtle. Seeing Yifei's figure leave in a rage, the dragon turtle became extremely guilty. Its forelegs swayed even more violently towards the sky. Unfortunately, it had eaten too much this time. No matter how hard the dragon turtle tried, it couldn't flip its body over. In the end, the dragon turtle had no choice but to cry out in grief and indignation. Then, it started to roll behind Yifei like a big black hole ball. Rumbling sounds could be heard as it started to roll behind Yifei. Chapter 2182. Just like that, the dragon turtle bounced behind Yifei, attracting countless shocked gazes along the way. In a certain garden in the heavenly abode, Xiao Qiao and Ling Siki were tugging at each other. Suddenly, they saw the dragon turtle bouncing over. Xiao Qiao's eyes lit up. With a wave of his hand, a gust of spiritual wind had already summoned the dragon turtle that was like a rubber ball. Ling Siki's eyes were even brighter. She held the dragon turtle in her arms and patted the ground. "Little brother, what did you feed Big Black in the heavenly realm? Why do I feel that it feels even better when I pat it?" Hearing this, Xiao Qiao didn't say anything and hugged the dragon turtle as well. With a light pat, the dragon turtle bounced up habitually. The eyes of the two little girls became incomparably bright at the same time. The dragon turtle's face was ashen. It hurriedly cast a pleading look at Yifei. Yifei pretended not to see it and continued to walk forward. His divine sense had already sensed that there seemed to be a very strong battle ahead. He walked over to take a look. Di Fan, Dongfang Yu, the army of destruction, Shui Yu, and these people were all here. Luo Shi and Xia Jun were also here to cheer. Jing Wushou and Zhao Qianjun were even acting as referees. The figures fighting in the air shocked Yifei. It was actually Lin Shun and Lin Gui challenging Lu Qing together. The most unbelievable thing was that the two of them were actually at a disadvantage in Lu Qing's hands even though they were working together. Yifei was a little surprised. He quickly saw that the martial arts divine ability that Lu Qing used was different. It was a very powerful lightning divine ability. It was even more exquisite than the Divine Star Academy's 5 lightning divine clock. It was also because of this that Lu Qing wasn't at a disadvantage, even though he was fighting 1 against 2. In the end, Lin Shun and Lin Gui simply admitted defeat. Let's not fight anymore. I really don't understand. We're both early-stage rulers, but why is your profound energy more abundant than ours? Your divine abilities are also more powerful than ours. This should be Lu Qing's Wheel of Destiny, which is of a higher level than yours. When you were at the initial stage of the ruler realm, you could only condense 3 types of second-level laws, but Lu Qing could condense 4 types of second-level laws. That's why our Xian Qi is more abundant than yours. Some Xian Qi will also become denser. Yifei hit the nail on the head and pointed out where Lu Qing's strength lay. After experiencing the tempering of the Supreme Emperor Sky and the group of geniuses from the Divine Continent like Yang Ming, his horizons have been greatly broadened. After giving pointers to Lin Shun and Lin Gui, Yifei looked at Lu Qing and said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, you should be using the Wind and Cloud Hall's supernatural power." Yes, I'm using the Thundercloud Palm, which is the Wind and Cloud Hall's sovereign supernatural power. The Thundercloud Palm can only be considered a lower middle supernatural power in the Wind and Cloud Hall. Lu Qing's words shocked everyone present. Who would have thought that a lower middle supernatural power in the Wind and Cloud Hall would be considered a top-notch supernatural power in the Azure Province? This is the difference between us. In the Azure Province, we can only be frogs at the bottom of a well. If we want to become stronger, we can only enter the Divine Continent and compete with the true geniuses of the Divine Continent. Only then can we grow. Difan's expression was very solemn. He was an innate saint and the first person to break through to the ruler realm. However, not only was he unable to defeat Lin Gui and Lin Shun, but he also couldn't defeat Lu Qing. This was the restriction imposed on him by the Earth Domain. Only by breaking this restriction could Difan truly grow. Hearing this, Yifei's heart suddenly moved. He said to Difan, "It's actually not too difficult to enter the Divine Continent. I just came back from there." Boom! Yifei's words shocked everyone present. Yifei actually went to the Divine Continent, but it had only been 10 days? Big brother, are you joking? It's only been 10 days, and you went to the Divine Continent and even came back? Xiaojun obviously didn't believe him. "I know you miss big sister-in-law, but you can't neglect second sister-in-law like this." Boom! Before he could finish speaking, a bolt of lightning had turned Xiaojun into charcoal on the spot. Everyone's eyelids twitched when they saw this. Yifei was even more speechless. Then, he told them about his experience in the Supreme Emperor Heaven. After all, it was useless for people from the Earth Domain to be strong alone if they wanted to gain a foothold in the Heaven Domain. Everyone had to be strong, and this experience in the Supreme Emperor Heaven allowed Yifei to see a way for everyone to increase their strength quickly. After listening to Yifei's story, Difan became visibly excited. "We must enter such a place." "All right, Junior brother, when will the Celestial Spiritual Gate open again?" Zhao Qianjun asked with interest. Among the youths who entered the Earth Domain, only 2 had broken through to the Sovereign Realm. One was Difan, and the other was Zhao Qianjun. Yifei naturally understood their eagerness to enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven. However, when he thought about the strength of the top 10 forces, Yifei shook his head and said, "Now is not the time. Just the Supreme Emperor Evil Sword, which is ranked 9th, almost made me unable to return. Let's wait for the limelight to die down. When the time comes, not only can senior brother Zhao and Difan enter, I hope that more people from the Earth Domain can enter the Supreme Emperor Heaven. Of course, Lin Shun and Lin Gui can enter as well." "No, we shouldn't enter." Lin Shun and Lin Gui shook their heads seriously. "We can't compare to you. In fact, our talent is very limited. In this lifetime, it's already not bad if we can break through to the Lord of Heaven." The Lin brothers' words were a cruel but helpless truth. They couldn't compare to Yifei, Difan, or Zhao Qianjun. They could break through to the sovereign realm more because of their hard work and luck, not because of their talent. Realizing this, the two arrogant people gradually let go of their pride and started to integrate into Yi Fei's small group. Lin Tianjiao, Dong Fengyu, Xia Jun, and Luo, she also did the same. They were former friends and brothers. Lin Shin smiled and said, "Although this topic is a little heavy, we still want to tell you that we don't plan to go to the Divine Prefecture. Our greatest wish in life is to destroy the imperial family of the Heavenly River and revive the Lin family. Therefore, we can only rely on you to climb to a higher level of martial arts. Yes, Yi Fei, we will wait in Qingzhou for you to break through to the Monarch God level. Rinzu, when the time comes, we can boast to others that Monarch God Yi is now our good friend." Lin Gui said jokingly. However, Yi Fei didn't laugh when he heard this joke. Instead, he felt a little bitter. However, he knew that Lin Shun and Lin Gui were telling the truth. Their talent couldn't keep up with his footsteps anymore. This was the cruelty of martial arts. The higher you climbed, the fewer people you had who could accompany you. You would become more and more lonely. However, this didn't mean that Yi Fei would be high and mighty and forget about old friendships. He didn't say anything. He just walked over and gave Lin Shun and Lin Gui a big hug. "We went through life and death together. In my heart, you are not only my friends, but also my brothers. Whether it is now or in the future, we will always be brothers." Chapter 2183. It was not that Clear Cloud Pavilion and Medicine Manor did not take action, but they could not. After all, Soaring Snake had become a Tao Lord and was on equal footing with Old Man Xinyan. Most importantly, Soaring Snake, as a Tao Lord, was willing to call himself an old servant in front of Yi Fei. This intimidated Medicine King and Old Man Xinyan. Before they figured out Yi Fei's identity, Medicine King and Old Man Xinyan did not dare to have a direct confrontation with Black Rock Peak. This allowed Black Rock Peak to pass a period of relative peace. However, peace was always short-lived, especially in Clear Cloud Pavilion. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find out Yi Fei's identity. Medicine Manor's prestige also suffered a blow due to Guo Tianjuan's betrayal. Gradually, Old Man Xinyan and Medicine King became impatient. Just as Black Rock Peak's protection period was about to end, these two giants of the Bayou Nation began to meet frequently. Under the mediation of Tao Lord Qinyang before he left, Clear Cloud Pavilion and Medicine Manor, the two largest factions of the Bayou Nation, finally showed signs of joining forces. On this day, the King of Medicine went to Qinyun City again and paid a solemn visit to Old Man Xinyan. "Brother, we can't delay the matter of Black Rock Peak and Yi Fei any longer. Lord Taoist Qinyang told us that before he returns to the Divine Land to ask Lord Baiyun for instructions, we must join forces to suppress Black Rock Peak. We must not let Yi Fei develop in the Baiyun Nation." Qinyang is a Tao Lord. Am I not a Tao Lord? Old Man Xinyan was displeased. However, as a Tao Lord, he was a far cry from Qinyang, who had Baiyun Divine Lord support, especially when he knew that Baiyun Divine Lord was backed by Wind and Cloud Hall, a major faction of the Divine Prefecture. Old Man Xinyan could not afford to offend Baiyun Divine Lord. He went. This was also the reason why he put aside his previous grudges and agreed to join forces with Medicine Manor to suppress Yi Fei. Faced with Medicine King's urging, Old Man Xinyan had already thought of a plan. "Medicine King, if you want to suppress Black Rock Peak, you don't need us to do it. There's another person here who can do it. Come, let me introduce you to someone." Old Man Xinyan smiled. He suddenly raised his hand and ordered someone to remove the screen behind him. Behind the screen, there was actually a person sitting upright. This person was wearing a python robe and was clearly a king. If Yi Fei were here, he would definitely recognize this middle-aged man as King Chu of the imperial family of the Heavenly River. "It's you, Bai Chujin. Old Man Xinyan, you actually joined forces with the imperial family of the Sky River." The King of Medicine was very surprised, but at the same time, he was somewhat vigilant. One must know that the Bayou Nation was divided into many warlords. Among them, the Medicine Manor and the Qingyun Pavilion were the two largest warlords. The Medicine Manor knew very well that if the forces of other countries were to enter the Bayou Nation, it would be a huge threat. Therefore, when the forces of other countries entered the Bayou Nation in the past, the Medicine Manor and the Qingyun Pavilion did not dare to do so. In the Clear Cloud Pavilion, they killed without mercy. This also served as a deterrent to the forces of other countries and allowed them to infiltrate the Bayou Nation. This also maintained the status of the Medicine Manor and the Clear Cloud Pavilion as the two overlords. It was only when Lu Qianzhong returned and revealed Rinzu's treasure that they gradually broke this rule. At this time, the Clear Cloud Pavilion even openly cooperated with the imperial family of the Heavenly River. Old man Qingyun quickly noticed the Medicine King's vigilance. He smiled slightly and glanced at King Chu. King Chu smiled and explained, "Medicine King, please be at ease. The imperial family of the Heavenly River only has one purpose in entering the Bayou Nation, and that is to kill Yi Fei and eliminate future threats." The Medicine King sneered. That Yi Fei's identity is currently unknown, and he even has a Dao Lord following him. Are you sure that the imperial family of the Heavenly River has the ability to deal with Yi Fei? Are you not afraid of the powerful forces behind Yi Fei? However, just Yi Fei alone was not enough to have a Dao Lord following him. The Medicine King and Old Man Qingyun were both astute people. Naturally, they could tell that there was a powerful force behind Yi Fei that could subdue the soaring serpent and make the Lord of Heaven betray him. This was also the reason why the Medicine Manor and the Clear Cloud Pavilion did not dare to attack the Black Rock Peak. They were afraid that if they attacked first, they would provoke the mysterious force behind Yi Fei. King Chu also sighed. It is precisely because there may be a mysterious force behind Yi Fei that the imperial family of the Heavenly River has to kill him at all costs. Otherwise, once Demon Yi matures, or the mysterious force behind him appears, it will be the end of the imperial family of the Heavenly River. It will be the end of the imperial family. As he spoke, King Chu subconsciously touched his left arm. Although his severed arm had been regenerated, he would never forget the hatred he felt when Yi Fei severed his arm. For this reason, King Chu did not hesitate to enter the Bayou Nation personally to kill Yi Fei. The imperial family of the Heavenly River has a plan called the Yi Slaying Plan. If this plan succeeds, not only will Yi Fei die, but even Dao, Lord Soaring Serpent, will not survive. However, we need the support of the two of you for this plan. More importantly, we need the Bayou Nation to make way for our zombie soldiers. King Chu's tone was cold. It was gloomy. The Medicine King and Old Man Qingyun's expressions changed. Although they did not know what kind of zombie soldiers the imperial family of the Heavenly River would send out, they could not help but look at each other when they heard King Chu's confident tone. "All right, we can make way for the zombie soldiers. But I wonder how much we will have to pay this time?" Old Man Qingyun's tone was grave. The so-called making way was not as simple as making way. One had to know that raising zombie soldiers required blood and flesh. If there was not enough blood and flesh, the zombie soldiers would go berserk and even turn on their masters. 10,000. We want the Bayou Nation to provide 10,000 people with blood and flesh. As long as you dare to do so, we will dare to wipe out Black Rock Peak. King Chu's tone was even colder. Both the Medicine King and Old Man Qingyun's faces darkened when they heard that 10,000 people would have to die in order to invite the imperial family of the Heavenly River to send out the zombie soldiers. Black Rock Peak. It was as calm as ever, but behind the calm, one could see the shadows of cultivation. After Lin Chun and Lin Gui's reminder, everyone felt a sense of danger from the bottom of their hearts. After all, Black Rock Peak's current strength was still too weak. It would be fine if the Medicine King Manor and the Azure Cloud Pavilion did not make a move. But if they suddenly attacked, Black Rock Peak's current strength might not be able to withstand it. In this regard, Yi Fei had also made many arrangements. he had moved most of the people into the grotto heaven world. In the end, Black Rock Peak was only left with Di Fan, Zhao Qianjun, Lin Shun, Lin Gui, and a few other sovereigns. However, when he saw Lu Qing standing on the mountain peak against the wind, Yi Fei felt a little depressed. He thought about it and walked over to persuade him. Lu Qing, why don't you go into the grotto heaven? Chapter 2184. Lu Qing's face was filled with self-reproach. After all, if she had not been captured by Lu Baiyun and controlled by Lu Qianzhong, Yi Fei would not have risked entering Rizu's tomb to save her. He would not have killed Lu Qianzhong and become enemies with the Lord God and Fengyan Palace. Lu Qing was filled with self-reproach. However, Yi Fei knew that Lu Qing's self-reproach was not as simple as being captured by Lu Qianzhong. This silly girl was truly reproaching herself for revealing the secret that she was from the Earth Domain to Lu Baiyun. After all, the fact that Soaring Snake was following him could scare the two small factions, Medicine Manor and Qingyan Pavilion. However, it could not scare a major faction like Fengyan Palace. As long as Lord Taoist Qinyang returned to the Divine Land and spread the news, Lu Baiyun, the Lord God, will be able to easily deduce that Yi Fei and the others were from the Earth Domain. Yi Fei, who was from the Earth Domain, could not possibly have any major faction backing him. Lu Qianzhong's death would give this Lord God sufficient reason to return to Qingzhou and seek revenge. At this thought, Yi Fei sighed softly. He did not know how to make Lu Qing feel better. All he could do was stand silently beside Lu Qing. The two of them stood together on the mountain peak, facing the wind. They looked at the scenery of the Black Rock Peak and the Baiyun Nation. Suddenly, snowflakes fell from the night sky and landed on their heads and bodies. As the night wind blew, the snow became heavier and heavier. Gradually, a clear white color appeared in the dark night. This snow is so beautiful. Lu Qing reached out to catch the snowflake. Yi Fei widened his eyes and stared coldly at the snowflake that was about to land on Lu Qing's hand. Then, without saying a word, he suddenly pounced on Lu Qing. You? Lu Qing's eyes widened. Could it be that Yi Fei was about to go berserk because the snow was so beautiful? However, she soon saw a horrifying scene. The snowflakes that filled the sky a moment ago had now turned into blood. The night sky was very cold, but the snowflakes made of blood had a sad beauty to them. Lu Qing's gaze suddenly became incomparably sharp, and endless lightning appeared on his body. Boom! This lightning directly lit up the night sky of Black Rock Peak. Below the night sky, countless flowers of blood floated. Then gusts of howling cold wind froze into ice, causing the entire Black Rock Peak to freeze. The mountain peak was dyed with a layer of terrifying icy blood. And at the end of this icy blood was a silent, gloomy army that emitted waves of cold air. There were more than 1,000 of them. It's the army. Could it be that the Medicine Manor has sent troops to surround and annihilate us? Lin Shun and Lin Gui were extremely nervous. At this moment, Jiang Zhun walked over. His body suddenly emitted boundless killing intent. I've seen such an army before. Back then, when senior brother Do Tian died in battle, the imperial city was also shrouded in red. Red blood. Back then, Lord Du Tianzuan had died at the hands of the Sky River Imperial family's Heavenly Corpse Ghost General. At this moment, the same blood had appeared on Black Rock Peak. There was no need to doubt the identity of the person who had come. I didn't expect that the first to make a move was not the Clear Cloud Pavilion, nor the Medicine Manor, but the Sky River Imperial family. Yi Fei's expression was cold. Lord Du Tianzuan was his senior, the person who had enlightened him on the path of despair. Unfortunately, Lord Du Tianzuan had not died in battle in the end. Instead, he had died under the claws of the Heavenly Corpse Ghost General. When he thought of this, a terrifying killing intent suddenly erupted from Yi Fei's body. This killing intent also caused the advancing corpse army to suddenly become silent. They were like cold corpses that were motionless outside the mountain peak. Then, a person walked out from the group of corpses. It was a man wearing an embroidered robe, but his face was incomparably cold. King Chu, Yi Fei. The man raised his head to look at the mountain peak, revealing a cold and stiff grin. Back then, you were just an ant. You relied on a treasure that could devour ghost generals to cut off my arm. Did you ever think that this day would come? I never thought that you would turn into a ghost instead of a human. No, you can't even be considered a ghost. You are just a half-corpse, half-ghost monster. Yi Fei shook his head coldly. The Sky River Imperial family was definitely the most perverted royal family he had ever seen. They did not trust the living, only the dead. They even refined their own bodies into corpses. For example, King Chu was like this. Although King Chu's soul was still alive, King Chu's physical body was actually dead. It happened to be in a half-dead state. Not only King Chu, but all the corpse soldiers that followed King Chu were the same. Yi Fei even saw a few familiar faces among them. By ear, their loyalty to Madame Meng was not tolerated by the Sky River Imperial family. After they returned to the Sky River Kingdom with Madame Meng's body, they were refined into zombie-like corpse soldiers. Yi Fei sighed. Don't worry. Later, I will personally end all of you and also end your painful lives. Haha, Yi Fei, I'm afraid you don't know. In the Sky River Kingdom, the highest reward is to become a corpse soldier. The greatest glory is to exist in this world forever. So what if we are half dead? We can still cultivate and obtain a longer life than when we were alive. As long as our bodies don't decay, we can live forever. Yi Fei, I look forward to seeing you become a corpse soldier. Kill them all. Roar. Following King Chu's order, the 1,000-strong corpse soldier army under the Black Rock Peak coldly and bloodthirstily launched their strongest attack on the Black Rock Peak. Activate the array. Yi Fei's expression was cold. Although the Qinyan Pavilion and the Medicine Manor had not made any moves, the Black Rock Peak did not let down its guard. During this time, the Tian Fa Quas-Emperor had specially returned to the Earth Domain to consult the three great array masters, Tian Jinzi, Dijinzi, and Array Fairy. Following their advice, he set up an eternal array. When this array was activated, the entire Black Rock Peak seemed to be hidden in an eternal kingdom. Although these corpse soldiers were extremely powerful, they were still unable to break the divine array that the array master had painstakingly created. King Chu's cold expression suddenly turned ferocious. His fingernails suddenly became very long, like 10 sharp swords, and he pointed them at Yi Fei. "And just you wait. Watch how I destroy your array." Roar. King Chu's body bounced up like a zombie. The sinister wind and ghostly aura suddenly transformed into 10 sharp black swords that slashed towards the eternal divine array. A cold smile immediately surfaced on Yi Fei's face. "You dare to use your sword in front of me. Kill Taiji's sword." Boom. Chapter 2185. You can actually sever my corpse claws. King Chu was extremely shocked. He wasn't an ordinary Lord of Heaven. He was a special half-human, half-corpse Lord of Heaven. This allowed King Chu to retain the realm and spirit of the Lord of Heaven while turning himself into the most terrifying human-shaped corpse soldier. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that King Chu was a living sky corpse. Ghost generals. However, ordinary sky corpse ghost generals were refined from the corpses of the Lord of Heaven. They were equivalent to special weapons and would be restrained by the undying sword soul. In order to resist Yi Fei's divine sword that could refine the baleful energy, the imperial family of the Sky River had painstakingly brought out these half-human, half-corpse soldiers. These corpse soldiers were in a half-dead state and weren't real corpses. Therefore, they could actually resist the refinement of the undying sword soul. At the same time, the moment they sensed Yi Fei's powerful qi and blood, the thousands of corpse soldiers around King Chu roared and went completely berserk. Clearly, the qi and blood of living people was the best stimulus for these corpse soldiers. There was no need to boost morale or care about casualties. As long as they sensed the aura of living people, these corpse soldiers would go berserk and attack all living things. Roar! Two corpse soldiers took the lead and charged towards Yi Fei. However, before they could swing their corpse claws away, a terrifying thundercloud suddenly appeared in the sky. Lu Qing's hair fluttered in the clouds like a furious lightning goddess. With a wave of her hand, the sky and earth were completely surrounded by terrifying thunderclouds. Furthermore, the corpse soldiers were of the yin attribute, while the lightning cloud was of the yang attribute. When the lightning that filled the sky bombarded the berserk corpse soldiers, the two corpse soldiers were immediately turned into charcoal. Then, they were cut into countless pieces by a sword light. At the crucial moment, Zhao Qianjun, the demonic sword king, made his move. His sword was still incomparably evil. After joining the demonic Saint Palace, Zhao Qianjun's evil sword had reached a new height. When the sword light shot out, it didn't just kill the corpse soldiers. It started to devour the corpse and evil qi of the corpse soldiers. Unknowingly, Zhao Qianjun had also embarked on the same path of devouring as the demon emperor. Zhao Qianjun's evil sword devoured a large amount of corpse energy and evil energy. A terrifying ghostly aura suddenly appeared on Zhao Qianjun's body. At the same time, Zhao Qianjun's wheel of destiny underwent a significant change. It was no longer a divine moon or a demonic sun, but a blood moon. A general success is built on the bones of tens of thousands of people. He is a hero after slaughtering the common people. In the middle of the night, the moon shines on the heavenly stars. Talking and laughing for half a lifetime is also boundless. Zhao Qianjun made the call, and Di Fan actually responded. This innate saint was now surrounded by a vast and mighty purple aura. He looked like a purple god of war. What Di Fan used was the divine Five Thunders clock. However, after Di Fan's deduction and modification, the shape of the divine clock had evolved into a purple thunder mountain. Rumble! Di Fan threw the thunder mountain forward. In an instant, the space in front of him was blown up. It was unknown how many corpse soldiers were blown up, but they let out angry roars. Lin Gui was even more dumbfounded. Strong, Brother Ye's friends from the Earth domain are too strong. Each of their talents is more abnormal than the other. They are strong, but we are not weak either. Let this group of corpse soldiers know the power of my Lin family's divine ability. Snowstorm heaven and earth. Lin Chen made his move. He held the divine spear fluttering snow in his hand. One man and one spear, with the momentum of a snowstorm, pierced a corpse soldier on the spot and threw it into the air. However, before Lin Shan could make another move, suddenly, a total of 10 corpse soldiers surrounded him. At the same time, the thunderous sound of a bell resounded between heaven and earth. Jiangzhen had finally made his move. He used the divine Five Thunders clock that had been famous for a long time in the Divine Star Academy. While the huge god bell was hanging upside down on Lin Gui and Lin Shun, it also produced a shocking force of thunder that sent the corpse soldiers surrounding them flying away with numbness all over their bodies. However, the most intense battle was still the one between Yi Fei and King Chu. The two of them fought until the sky turned dark. Ordinary corpse soldiers could not even get close to this battlefield. After all, King Chu was not only a half-corpse, half-human monster, but also a true powerhouse of the Lord of Heaven. Yi Fei's divine power had reached the level of the Lord of Heaven. His divine power and heavy sword were extremely destructive to these corpse soldiers and King Chu. However, even though he had the upper hand, Yi Fei did not dare to let his guard down. While he was fighting with King Chu, he had already exploded all of his divine power. The black iron heavy sword had the power to shatter the void as it continuously smashed forward. At the same time, boundless sword light suddenly appeared in Yi Fei's empty left hand. This sword light originated from the Wuji, and from the Wuji, the Taiji, the 8 trigrams. Yi Fei's strong swordsmanship foundation and the evil sword law that the evil emperor's sword bestowed upon him. This allowed Yi Fei's Taiji divine sword to finally reach the level of a ruler divine ability. Furthermore, it was the strongest ruler divine ability. In fact, Yifei had a feeling that if his cultivation level was higher, the Taiji Divine Sword would be able to reach the level of a ruler divine ability. If his Taiji Divine Sword had reached the level of the Lord of Heaven, the power of his sword might have reached the level of the Lord of Heaven. This was also the reason why Yifei had been able to sever King Chu's fingernails. It was because his divine power, dark force, and the evil sword law were all mixed together. Yifei's black iron heavy sword had indeed reached the level of the Lord of Heaven's divine ability. Boom! Boom! It was another head-on clash. Yifei's entire body was burning with purple gold flames. Like an undefeatable god of war, he once again smashed towards King Chu. Not only that, his divine power, dark force, nomological laws, and black iron heavy sword combined to form a power that severed one of King Chu's corpse arms. A crack. Then, without waiting for King Chu to react, Yifei actually used his golden body of nomological laws to withstand King Chu's frenzied attacks. He continuously struck with his sword, one strike after another, at the crack on King Chu's corpse arm. Yifei, you must die, you must die. You actually severed one of my arms again. King Chu howled like a ferocious ghost. One of his hands had turned into a corpse claw and was frantically clawing at Yifei's body. His other arm could not withstand the continuous slashes of the black iron heavy sword and was once again severed into two. Ironically, this black iron heavy sword had been given to Yifei by Madame Ming as a favor at no cost. King Chu was so angry that his body trembled violently. However, King Chu did not continue to fight Yifei. Seeing that he was no match for Yifei in a one-on-one battle, the other corpse soldiers were blocked in their tracks by Di Fan and the rest who had suddenly appeared. King Chu suddenly let out a strange roar. The surrounding corpses suddenly trembled violently, as if they had seen a terrifying king. All the kings knelt on the ground one after another. Yifei suddenly felt a sense of trepidation. Oh no, since the imperial family of the Sky River has sent King Chu to kill me, then their methods are definitely not limited to these corpse soldiers. Everyone retreat at full speed. Whoosh! Chapter 2186. Roar. King Chu quickly took out 3 blood coffins in the open space where the corpses were crawling. He did not even dare to open them himself. When the corpse chi opened the coffins, King Chu acted as though he had seen something terrifying. He quickly fled and did not hesitate to burn his heavenly lord essence. Yifei's eyelids twitched violently as he stared at the 3 blood coffins that were slowly opening. Inside the blood coffins were endless blood chi and corpse chi. It was as if some terrifying, evil existence was slowly sitting up from the blood coffins. Moments later, a cold sweat suddenly appeared on Yifei's forehead. Seated within the blood coffin were the corpses of 3 Dao Lords. Countless vengeful spirits were entwined around their bodies, forming countless faces that floated around the corpses. Dao corpses, those are Dao corpses. Rumor has it that Sky River Lord's greatest wish was to refine a Dao corpse, but he was opposed by the entire Tiana kingdom and had to leave. No one knows if he's dead or alive. Jiang Zhen's face was filled with terror. Lin Shun and Lin Gui were juniors of the Lin family, so they didn't know as much as Jiang Zhen, a disciple of the Lord of Heaven. They looked at Jiang Zhen in confusion. The so-called Dao corpses are corpse soldiers refined from Dao Lord corpses. However, Dao Lord corpses are very rare. To refine a Dao corpse, it requires the blood sacrifice of 100,000 souls. Only then can it be refined successfully. Because of this, Sky River Lord was opposed by the entire Tianhe kingdom and had to abandon the kingdom. Now it seems that Sky River Lord didn't leave at all. He has been hiding in the dark all this time, researching how to refine Dao corpses. Jiang Zhen's eyes flashed with deep fear. Yifei also sucked in a breath of cold air. Only 100,000 souls could be refined into a Dao corpse. But here, there were 3. Just how many people had the Sky River Imperial family secretly killed? And how many souls have been sacrificed? Now we finally understand why grandfather said that the Tianhe royal family's decline was their own fault. They have no grudge against anyone. Lin Shun and Lin Gui sucked in a cold breath. Yi Fei was still very puzzled. Since these are Dao corpses refined by the imperial family of the Sky River, why did King Chu immediately flee after taking out these 3 blood coffins? It must be the imperial family of the Heavenly River. They can only refine Dao corpses, but they can't fully control them. Old Man Skyriver is only a Dao Lord after all. No matter how powerful his evil arts are, he won't be able to control 3 corpse soldiers at the same level as him. Zhao Qianjun had a solemn look on his face. Yi Fei's expression also became serious. In the Earth domain, Zhao Qianjun was a great master of the evil devil Dao. Later on, he had joined the evil devil Saint Palace and obtained the evil devil Dao's true teachings. Zhao Qianjun's attainments in the evil devil Dao were extremely high. Since he said that the corpses could not be controlled, then they definitely could not be controlled. Roar, roar, roar. Just as Yi Fei stood on Black Rock Peak and watched, the 3 Dao corpses at the foot of the mountain finally jumped out of the blood coffins. The moment they jumped out of the blood coffins, the entire world became gloomy, bloody, and oppressive. The flying serpent and the Lord of Heaven nervously appeared from the shadows and completely protected Yi Fei. They were afraid that if Yi Fei died, they would die with him. The flying serpent even suggested with a solemn look, "Young master, these 3 Dao corpses are Old Man Skyriver's most terrifying trump card. I alone can't stop them." Oh no, the Dao corpses are attacking the mountain. The Lord of Heaven suddenly shouted. As he shouted, the 3 Dao corpses opened their ferocious eyes at the same time. Yi Fei only glanced at them, and countless bloody lights and the faces of men, women, old, and young appeared in his mind. Bam! The first thing the 3 Dao corpses did after awakening was to work together to attack Black Rock Peak and plunder all the living beings they could sense. Under the attacks of the 3 Dao Lord corpse soldiers, Black Rock Peak's protective formation was like a lone boat in a storm, swaying back and forth. In less than 10 breaths, the 3 Dao corpses and nearly 1,000 ordinary corpse soldiers had blasted a huge hole in the eternal divine formation. In the hole, Yi Fei and the others' powerful qi and blood instantly drove the 3 Dao corpses crazy. Roar, roar, roar. The Dao corpses turned into bloody lights and charged at the flying serpent, the Lord of Heaven, and Yi Fei. They could sense the people with the most vigorous qi and blood. Behind the Dao corpse were hordes of undead soldiers, roaring as they charged up the Black Rock Peak. Yi Fei's mood instantly sank to the bottom. But soon, a strong sense of unwillingness and battle intent appeared on his body. Black Rock Peak is the only stronghold of the Earth realm in the Heaven realm. If we lose this stronghold, we will have nowhere to go. The other countries in Qingzhou will definitely not welcome us. Since there is no way out, then what's the harm in fighting? Kill! Yi Fei roared as the purple gold flame burned in his hand again. He took out the invincible sword token and awakened the invincible sword soul. Then he took the initiative to attack one of the Dao corpses. However, the Dao corpse did not fear the invincible sword soul like the other Sky corpse ghost generals. Sensing the threat of the invincible sword soul, the Dao corpse laughed sinisterly and did not give Yi Fei a chance to get close. The vengeful spirits around him had already formed a terrifying Yin wind. This wind turned the mountains silent. It blew them into powder. Yi Fei, who was directly facing the Yin wind, had his golden body of laws shatter on the spot. He hurriedly used the invincible sword token to block in front of him and barely escaped. His back was covered in cold sweat. Not only was this Dao corpse brutal, but it also seemed to have a certain level of consciousness. It was completely different from the ordinary corpse soldiers who could only passively listen to King Chu's orders. While Yi Fei was being blown around by the chilly wind, Mengshi had already engaged in a fierce battle with another Dao corpse. However, facing the fearless Dao corpse, Mengshi who was a coward, was no match for it at all. After a few rounds of fighting, Mengshi was completely suppressed by the Tao corpse. If the Tao Lord's flying serpent was so weak, then the Lord Heaven Gua, who was only at the Lord Heaven realm, was even more vulnerable. Not only did he not have the guts to fight with the Tao corpse, but he was also being pursued by the Tao corpse. Cries for help sounded one after another. Yi Fei then looked at Zhao, Qianjun, and the others, only to discover that they were all in a tough battle under the siege of nearly 1,000 corpse soldiers. Although everyone here, except for Lu Qing, had cultivated the 9 revolutions divine star art and could fight one against 10 of the same realm, it was a pity that there were not just a few hundred corpse soldiers here. There were nearly 1,000 of them. Moreover, there were also 3 terrifying Tao corpses. No one could stop them. Yi Fei knew that if this situation was allowed to continue, not only would the Blackstone Peak be completely destroyed by the Tao corpse, but the lives of everyone present would be in danger. Lu Qing even rushed to Yi Fei's side despite being scratched by the corpse soldiers and being poisoned. He shouted, "Yi Fei, you can't hesitate any longer. If this continues, everyone will die. The Blackstone Peak will also be finished." Chapter 2187. Opening the Grotto Heaven was the last resort. After all, once the Grotto Heaven was opened, the news would be leaked. With the wisdom of the King of Medicine and Old Man Qin Yun, they would definitely realize that Yi Fei's backer was most likely a mysterious race that existed in the Grotto Heaven. Although they did not know that the Grotto Heaven contained the remnants of the Spirit Immortal race, it was enough to pose a huge threat to the Black Rock Peak, the Spirit Immortal race, and Yi Fei himself. However, there was no other way. The 3 Tao corpses released by the imperial family of the Sky River were too strong. They did not recognize their own kin and were murderous. In order to avoid casualties and to protect the Black Rock Peak, the only foothold in the world, Yi Fei resolutely ordered the Heavenly Path Tree to reopen the Grotto Heaven. Heavens! The night sky became even darker. Endless black fog covered the frozen blood of the Tao corpses. This was a unique black fog of the Grotto Heaven. When the black fog appeared and shrouded the mountain peak, the entire mountain peak fell into the world of the Grotto Heaven. Grotto Heaven, damn it! This godforsaken Black Rock Peak actually hides a Grotto Heaven. In the shadow of the mountain peak, King Chu was as cold as a corpse, stiffly hiding behind a huge rock. Then he saw the Grotto Heaven open with his own eyes. His face immediately turned gloomy, and he let out a silent roar. It was a roar. The roar formed a strange ripple that spread from the foot of the mountain to the top. Although the imperial family of the Sky River could not control the Tao corpses, they could use some special methods to make the corpses angry and crazy. From there, they would become more fearless and savage. Yi Fei, even if you hide in the Grotto Heaven, I will kill you. The imperial family of the Sky River will not give you any chance to grow. King Chu covered his wound with a face full of hatred. The blood that flowed out of his broken arm was not human blood, but bone-chilling corpse blood. After that, King Chu casually grabbed an earthly venerate loose cultivator from the profound, vain spirit gathering pagoda that he had brought with him. Without any hesitation, King Chu had already grown his fangs. Under the horrifying gaze of that loose cultivator, his fangs pierced deeply into that person's throat. Roar! On the mountain peak, the group of corpses roared, as if they had been greatly stimulated. They became even crazier and attacked Di Fan and the others without any regard for their lives. The 3 Tao corpses in the air let out shrill screeches that sounded like the cries of owls. Then, 3 streaks of crimson light suddenly converged and furiously charged towards the strongest of the 3, Tao Lord Monsh. Not good. Young master, save me. The flying serpent was so terrified that his face turned pale. Although he was a Tao Lord, he was no match for the 3 Tao corpses. Evidently, the 3 Tao corpses had instinctively joined forces after sensing that something was wrong. The combined attack of the three Tao corpses was not something that the soaring serpent could withstand. Left with no choice, the soaring serpent could only retreat in fear. They didn't even have the time to protect Di Fan and the others. After all, the soaring serpent didn't care if Di Fan and the others lived or died. As long as Yi Fei didn't die, that was enough. Yi Fei, however, was enraged. He roared at the soaring serpent, "Go back. If any one of you dies in battle today, I'll take your life. You're a Tao Lord. Can't you at least show some backbone?" Yi Fei was furious. Hearing the roar, the soaring serpent's eyes flashed with a murderous glint. He hissed, "Shut up. I'm a Tao Lord. How humiliating is it to be your slave? Since Blackrock Peak can't be defended, I might as well enjoy myself for once. I'll eat you, little demon, and then I'll eat that fat black pig on your body." Pig. Snakes were the most vengeful by nature, and the soaring serpent was even more so. In the face of danger, the soaring serpent didn't know how to resist. Instead, it went berserk and wanted to devour its master. First, it wanted to eat Yi Fei. Yi Fei's gaze turned cold. He was already considering if he should take out the token that controlled the soaring serpent and destroy this vengeful and cowardly soaring serpent. It was also at this moment that a series of heavy footsteps could be heard from the dark fog. It sounded like a giant was sprinting. Then, hundreds of trants that were close to 10 meters tall rushed out from the fog. "Spirit Lord, leave it to us." Boom! A strong hurricane suddenly blew in the dark fog. It was caused by hundreds of trants running at high speed. Just this gust of wind alone was enough to make Yi Fei and the others stumble. After that, Yi Fei saw a terrifying scene. A Treeman warrior charged into the group of corpses. Its gigantic divine wood palm suddenly emitted a green divine light as it slammed towards the corpses. Those corpses that even Di Fan and the others couldn't kill were smashed into pieces as if they were made from mud. They were instantly smashed into minced meat. They didn't even have the right to become skeletons. Roar! The appearance of the Treant completely infuriated the three Tao corpses. They roared at the same time. Apart from boosting their morale, they also turned into three ghastly and terrifying rays of bloody light. With a whoosh, they pierced through the bodies of the three Treants. Yi Fei's face suddenly turned pale. These Treants are the only soldiers left in the spiritual realm. If they suffered too many casualties, how could Yi Fei face the heavenly tree and Xiao Chao? Squeak! Seeing the casualties of the Treants, Xiao Chao's eyes were brimming with tears. He raised his vine whip and was about to rush out to help. In the beast-marked space, the dragon turtle also hurriedly stopped Xiao Chao. In the end, Xiao Cao's method was only effective against ferocious beasts and their souls. Against these corpse soldiers, there was nothing it could do. Cruel laughter filled the night sky. The three Tao corpses turned into bloody lights. They were unstoppable in the midst of the Treants. They pierced through the Treants recklessly from the outermost perimeter to the innermost in one breath. During this time, countless Trents' bodies were pierced through by the bloody lights. Terrifying holes the size of mouths appeared. However, these Treants didn't fall because of this. Then, a layer of intense green light erupted from their bodies at the same time. Zhao Qianjun, the evil demon grandmaster, was shocked. Spring has come upon a withered tree. These Treants have such a terrifying regenerative ability. Boom! With Zhao Qianjun's reminder, Yi Fei was shocked to see the wounds on the Treants that had been pierced through by the three Tao corpses recover in an instant. At the same time, the three Tao corpses were piercing through the Treants recklessly. Suddenly, the hundreds of Treants. They attacked at the same time. Like hundreds of huge palms, they slapped the three Tao corpses viciously as if they were flies. Let alone a Tao corpse, even a divine dragon would be slapped hundreds of times in an instant. It would be stunned. In front of Yi Fei's eyes, the three Tao corpses exploded into pieces with a single touch. Not even their corpses were left behind. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.